Chapter 25. From Garashi's point of view, the ninja school's curriculum is actually a subtle way to dilute the family's imprint. However, for children these are not important. What really attracts them is, wow, I want to choose the first Dame Sama's tree world descent. Idiot. Would release his bloodline limit, you won't be able to learn it even if you choose. How dare you say I'm an idiot? Look at my water release. Great waterfall technique. Who doesn't know how to spit? Look at my water release. Water ripple. In this lively atmosphere, Asma ran over and sat on the table in front of Garashi without any hesitation. Have you thought about what to choose as a graduation gift? I'll go first. I'm going to choose fire release. Ash concealment technique. Kurenai's fingertips gently touched her delicate chin. I want to choose genjutsu, dark walk technique. Asma then asked with great interest, Garashi, what about you? Shushi crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled gently and lazily. As for me, spiritualization. At this time, the girl sitting behind Garashi suddenly said timidly, Spirit transformation technique? Garashi turned around and tilted his head. Shizen-san, is there a problem? It seems that she didn't dare to look directly at Garashi's eyes. Shizen shyly lowered her head and asked in a low voice, Garashi-kun, why do you want to learn this ninjutsu? Garashi said with a sincere face, if I can learn this ninjutsu, I can help everyone in the future. Even on the battlefield, I can get everyone's information first. Hearing this, Shizen couldn't help but say, but people who learn this ninjutsu will be targeted by enemy ninja villages, and when you use this ninjutsu, it's the most dangerous moment for your body. Why do you want to learn this ninjutsu? At the end of her speech, her soft voice became agitated and sharp. Garashi smiled gently. Student Muin, do you think the senior who invented this technique thought about this problem? Hearing Garashi say this, Shizen subconsciously recalled the gentle face of that man. Although she was still very young at the time, that kind of care had been engraved in the depths of her memory. It was this memory that made her instinctively refuse to answer, I don't know. Garashi smiled, his eyes were full of longing. The so-called ninjutsu, isn't it created by the will of the ancestors? Wouldn't it be a pity if no one inherits its will? Jingyin felt a sense of loss. She murmured the words Garashi had said. Inherit, will, wait. Asma waved his arms and interrupted their conversation. Spiritualization is an S-rank ultimate ninjutsu. Even if it's you, Garashi, it's almost impossible for you to learn it. Asma, this is not like you. Garashi turned around and smiled gently. Even if it's an ultimate ninjutsu, isn't it also created by people? What our ancestors can do, can't we even repeat the path they walked? If we don't even have this kind of courage, how can we create a better future? Hearing this, Asma shouted with his blood boiling. You are right, I also want to choose an ultimate ninjutsu. However, Ibiki's voice came faintly from the side. There is no ultimate ninjutsu with fire attribute in the book. Ah no, with a smile, Garashi turned his eyes to Shizen again. As for the question just now, I already have the answer. Whether it's the hostile shinobi village or the weakness of the body, in fact, it can be answered with one answer, companions. Asma, Kurenai, if it's you, you can protect me, right? Asma, who was still wailing about the fact that there was no ultimate ninjutsu in the book, suddenly stopped and shouted in a loud voice. Of course, if you want to deal with Garashi, you have to step over my dead body first. Kurenai gritted her teeth. Bastard, why did you answer so quickly? At this time, Shizen also woke up from her daze and looked at Garashi with eyes that seemed to be shining like stars. Garashi-kun, actually, the person who created the spiritualization was my uncle Kato Duan. Garashi showed a trace of surprise at the right time. No wonder you were so surprised when you heard that I was going to choose spiritualization, so... Shizen bit her lower lip. Although this jutsu is already owned by the village, Garashi wasn't surprised by this. After all, Woodleaf's patent didn't extend for many years after the inventor's death. But my uncle still has the experience of practicing spiritualization. If Garashi-kun needs it, I can lend it to you. Garashi was overjoyed and asked, Really? Shizen nodded vigorously. Yes, if it's you, Garashi-kun. Just then Takatani Ryosuke dashed into the room like a gust of wind. He ran up to Shushi and gloated. Aha, Shushi, guess what I saw when I went to the bathroom? Asma said with a look of disdain. You didn't go into the girls' washroom, did you? Idiot, how could Lord Ryosuke do something like that? Ryosuke's face flushed red. I'll be direct. Mizuki was blocked by the third years. When he shouted, the whole class turned to look at him. Serves him right. Who told him to be so rude to the class leader last time? Yeah, if it wasn't for Garashi, who would care about him? Now that you mention it, I want to see how that guy got into trouble. Takatani Ryosuke was about to agree when he saw Garashi's serious expression and asked, Garashi, you're not thinking of saving that bastard, are you? Garashi nodded seriously. Seeing this, Ryosuke couldn't help but feel depressed. Is that guy that important? Every single one of you is important to me. Garashi's gentle gaze swept over everyone, his voice firm. I know that Mizuki-san isn't very sociable, and you could even say that he's a bit of a loner, but no matter what, he's still a member of our class. As long as he doesn't do anything to harm the class, he'll always be our comrade. The third years don't have the right to lecture us first years. Actually, Garashi's words weren't very convincing, but thanks to his perfect image, everyone's enthusiasm was instantly aroused. We first years are the best group. That's right, let's let those third years know that we're not to be trifled with. Like a torrent, everyone took the initiative to rush out behind Shushi. For a moment, the other seniors on campus were at a loss as they watched this scene in horror. Were these freshmen going to start a club on campus? How scary. Chapter 26. At the same time in the grove next to the toilet. Hey! Shuemu, who was forcibly dragged out of the toilet, shouted in horror, You, what do you want to do? A hoodlum walked out while pressing his finger bones and said with a smile, Nothing, just let you feel the tradition of the freshmen. What tradition? It's just that we seniors will give you some pointers. After that, you just have to give us some compensation. Shuemu could naturally hear their bad intentions, but he still asked with some hope, Can I not give pointers? A group of hoodlums laughed. How can that be? We third-year seniors are your best brothers. If we say we will give you pointers, then we will give you pointers. Shuemu's heart gradually sank. While looking for an escape route from the corner of his eyes, he used words to attract the attention of the other party. Why me? There are so many people in the first year. Of course it's because you are the easiest to bully. Who told you to have no friends? Shuemu was shocked and suddenly remembered Garashi's several previous invitations. But soon he recalled the family he lost in the war. Friends? The existence of friends is not reliable at all. Family members will die, friends will die, only oneself is the only one worthy of trust. People who have nothing will not be afraid of losing. Seeing Shuemu silent, the hoodlums were a little dispirited. What they wanted to see was not this boring mime. You bastard, at least give some reaction. That's right, don't talk, pretending to be a master. Before his voice fell, Shuemu sprinted in the direction of the women's toilet. He knew that in terms of endurance he can't compete with this group of third-year students, he can only bet that they don't want to bear the abnormal reputation. Bastard, you dare to run away. However, before Shuemu could run a few steps, he was kicked away by someone. With such strength you still want to resist? Shunian stood at the edge of the grove and said coldly. Usually he wouldn't work so hard, but this time is different, this time is for the glory of Uchiha. Seeing this situation, the hoodlums surrounded him with a grin. Run, why don't you run? You don't even listen to your seniors. Are all first-year rookies so arrogant? As if the pain hidden in his heart had been stimulated by the previous memories, Shuemu's eyes turned red as he pounced forward like a madman. Damn it, I'll fight it out with you. One of the hoodlums easily caught Shuemu's fist and commented with a smile. Good, very energetic. Shuemu, who had been well-versed in fighting since he was a child, suddenly kicked his opponent's crotch. The hoodlum who was beaten had his legs close together, kneeling crookedly on the ground, tears of bitterness gushing out from his eyes. The other hoodlums first felt a chill in their lower body, then they furiously rushed up. Damn bastard, beat him. Don't hold back. Naturally, Shuemu was no match for him. He could only lie on the ground and curl up into a ball. I want revenge. I must kill them. Shuemu roared furiously in his heart. It was only because of his tenacious willpower that he did not faint. But gradually even his consciousness became numb. Am I going to die? No, I don't want to die yet. Suddenly the punches and kicks on his body stopped. Is it finally over? In a daze, Shuemu forced his bruised eyes open. In his line of sight, the group of arrogant and unreasonable third-year students had all retreated to the side. Looking behind him, their faces seemed to be filled with horror and fear. What happened? This question flashed through Shuemu's swollen thoughts. Then he heard a familiar voice asking him from behind. Shuemu, can you still hold on? Bear with it for a while, I'll treat you right now. In reality, Garashi himself had some doubts in his heart. In his estimation, Shuemu should not have suffered such serious injuries. Could it be that he had done something overboard to these third-year students? But the current situation seems to be more advantageous for me. Garashi's eyes narrowed, several plans rapidly forming in his mind. His hands, however, were not slow in forming seals. A faint green fluorescent light sprinkled on Shuemu's body, making him feel so comfortable that he almost moaned. On the other side, seeing Shuemu's miserable state, some of the students who originally did not have a good impression of him felt some sympathy in their hearts. Then one by one they glared angrily at the third-year students. Being stared at by so many burning eyes, the third-year students' legs turned to jelly. At the same time, in their hearts, they were blaming Xiongyan and that dog-headed military advisor. What happened to being marginal people who did not care? Xiongyan composed himself and gathered his courage to stand out. First years, what are you trying to do? Seeing that Garashi was treating Shuemu, Asma consciously stood in front of him. The answer should be very obvious: beating people up. Xiongyan could not help but stagnate. These words should have been said by them in the past. What was even more depressing was that the person who said these words was Asma, the person he wanted to beat the most. Xiongyan took a deep breath. This Shuemu, there should be a lot of people on your side who hate him, right? There's no need to make everyone unhappy because of such a person. Asuma's face was filled with displeasure. I only know that you've touched our first years. Garashi said that if you touch our people, you have to pay the price. The corner of Xiongyan's eyes twitched twice. He originally thought that as Naruto's son, the other party would be very unhappy to be suppressed by others. But now it seemed that this was not the case at all. At this moment, the dog-headed military advisor from before stood out. All right, let's fight one-on-one according to the rules. Asma's eyes widened. A third-year student beating up a first-year student. You have the nerve to call it a one-on-one? The dog-headed military advisor waved his hand without the slightest awkwardness. Then let's fight one-on-two. Asma was a little undecided. He looked at Garashi. Finally, Shushi helped Shuemu stabilize his injuries and stood up. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Garashi. Anticipation, jealousy, fear, admiration, and so on. He's obviously just a freshman, but this kind of momentum that can stir the wind and clouds is really enviable. So powerful. If only we had such a strong person in the second year. The seniors of the other grades who came with the large group also became excited when they saw this scene. Garashi didn't answer directly. Instead, he looked at Shizun first. Shizun, classmate, you should also know medical ninjutsu, right? Ha! She didn't expect Garashi to call her in front of so many people. Shizun lowered her head nervously. Yes, I know a little. That's good. Garashi nodded and then looked at Xiongyan and the others with a sharp gaze. We are all ninjas, don't need to talk about one-on-one fighting. Hearing Garashi's words, the faces of the first-year students were filled with kind smiles. Seeing this situation, the third-year delinquents panicked. Wait, don't come over. Before the voice fell, the crowd with a ball of fire in their hearts had already rushed forward. For a moment, screams, wails, and begging for mercy echoed rhythmically in the mountain forest. The other grades all trembled in fear as they watched this scene. In their hearts, they made up their minds that they would definitely not provoke the first years in the future. After about 10 minutes, Shushi finally stopped the group of wild beasts that had been released from their cages. Shizun, classmate, come with me to treat them. Oh. Although she was puzzled, Shizun wasn't an opinionated person. Hearing Garashi's request, she responded like a bug and followed. Xiongyan raised her swollen pig head and said with a backbone. Don't think that we will forgive you. Garashi looked up blankly. Forgive what? Xiongyan suddenly had an ominous premonition in her heart, but she still asked, don't you want to ease the relationship with us? Garashi shook his head and smiled. I just want to beat you up after curing you. The other delinquents were dumbfounded. At this moment, Garashi's image in their eyes was even more terrifying than the devil. Chapter 27. La 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 la, I'm back. Hearing the brisk tune coming from the entrance, Tsunade, who was lazily buried in the sofa, reluctantly raised half of her head. Shizun, when are you going to cook dinner? I'll be right there. Shizun was a little helpless. It was Tsunade-sama who promised her uncle to take care of her. Why did it feel like the roles were reversed? However, Shizun didn't reject this change. For her, it was more like home. Tsunade slowly slid down the sofa like a slug. Then a scene caught a glimpse of the corner of her eye made her spirit suddenly cheer up, and she asked excitedly, Shizun, did you fight with others at school? In Tsunade's view, Shizun was a good child, but her character was too soft, and she would be easily taken advantage of in the future. You know, she fought all the way to the ninja school. As Tsunade Haim's disciple, how could she not fight? Jingyin patted her dusty sleeves and nodded excitedly. And then, for a good child like her, today's group fight experience was like a sudden opening of the door to a new world. I told you a long time ago it's cool to beat people, right? Tsunade excitedly taught Shizun her previous experience as a bully. Of course it's not good to beat people casually. It's best if there are 1 or 2 guys in your class who deserve a beating like Jiraiya. Shizun waved her small fist with some dissatisfaction. What? We're fighting a just war against the oppression of evil forces. Tsunade was at a loss. Where did she learn this novel language? Seeing Tsunade's confused face, Shizun took the initiative to explain. It's those third-grade bad guys who bullied a classmate in our class. Then Garashi-kun took us to take the initiative to find those bad guys to settle accounts. Our whole class went out together, and those third-grade people were so scared that they didn't even dare to say a word. And after we beat them up, Garashi-kun asked me to treat those bad guys with him, and then we beat them up again. Shizun became more and more excited, and in the end, her face became red. That kid has such courage. Tsunade's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. When she heard that he treated those people, she thought that Garashi wanted to reconcile with those people. But they didn't expect him to do it just to beat them up again. However, it is indeed very satisfying. Tsunade nodded secretly. Last time she saw Jiraiya's universal love in Shueisha, but this time she saw Shueisha's unyielding love in him just like her. Thinking of this, Tsunade suddenly realized another problem. Wait, did you say the whole class? Jingyin tilted her head. Is there a problem? Tsunade asked curiously, don't you have any concerns about a group fight? Moreover, from what you said earlier, the person you're dealing with this time isn't a good person. Aren't you afraid that someone will take revenge on you after this? Yeah. Jingyin nodded foolishly at first as if she suddenly realized something. We only heard about it from Garashi-kun, so we followed without thinking about anything else. But soon she waved her hand confidently and said, but don't worry, we helped that classmate this time, and the next time we are bullied the other students will definitely help us. Moreover, those bad guys in the 3rd grade are now afraid of the class leader. With Garashi-kun they won't dare to provoke us at all. With just one sentence he can make people follow him with all they have. This kind of trust is really enviable. Tsunade sighed softly. If it weren't for the fear of blood, I would be very happy to accept such a disciple. Uchiha clan in a mansion with the characteristics of the Warring States period. The middle-aged ninja sitting in the atrium suddenly opened his eyes and asked indifferently. Where are you going? Shunian, who was tiptoeing through the atrium, stiffened and turned back with her head drooping. Father. About the injuries on your body, aren't you going to explain to me? Shunian curled her lips. Someone has already told you. The middle-aged ninja asked in a stiff tone. I want to hear it from you. Shunian helplessly knelt down and immediately made a painful cry. What's wrong with you? My butt was beaten and I can't sit still. Seeing Shunian constantly twisting her body and finally in a posture with her butt raised high, the middle-aged ninja almost fainted directly. Taking a deep breath, the middle-aged ninja calmed down. Now you can say it. Shunian said with her butt raised. Simply put, I was beaten for the glory of the Uchiha clan. The middle-aged ninja sneered. Then should I praise you? Shunian whispered. I think so. Nonsense. The middle-aged ninja slammed the table. I didn't care about you for a while and you mixed with those garbage? Do you know that those little punks are just using your reputation as an Uchiha? As for you, they have never treated you as one of their own. I know. You know. You said you know? I'm not really an idiot, I can still distinguish whether people are good or bad to me. The middle-aged ninja suppressed his anger. Then why do you still mix with them? Shunian didn't answer directly but said something else. Since I was a child, except for my friends in the clan, no one of my age was willing to play with me. Is there such a thing? How come I didn't know? Of course you don't know. You're always with the clan leader and the others. You've never had time to care about me. The middle-aged ninja frowned and didn't speak. I've tried to make friends with people from the outside world but I have failed. In fact, it doesn't matter, but what I can't stand is them slandering the Uchiha clan behind my back, slandering the glory of the Uchiha clan that you regard as your own life. Chapter 28. The next day at noon. When the bell rang, everyone in the classroom cheered and rushed to the cafeteria, but there were a few people who surrounded Garashi. Are you going to visit Mizuki in the hospital with me? Garashi looked at the people in front of him and asked. I have inquired clearly that guy was beaten because of me. Asuma scratched his head awkwardly. Anyway, I have to go and visit him. Shizun clenched her fists and put them on her chest. I am also a little worried about Mizuki-san's situation. Seeing Garashi looking at her, Kurenai's eyes drifted. If you all leave, I will be bored in the school alone. Well, let's go together. On the way, seeing Garashi was a little depressed, Asuma thought that he was worried about yesterday's matter, so he patted his shoulder and said, Don't worry, Garashi, if the Uchiha people come to trouble you, I will go back and complain to my old man. Garashi smiled happily when he heard this. With Asuma's arrogant character, he is willing to ask Sandaime for help for him. He must have done a lot of mental struggle. That's not what I am worried about. Garashi shook his head and was silent for a moment. When I gave Mizuki the initial treatment yesterday, I found that his injury may be a little serious. Asuma asked puzzledly, Is it? Didn't I see him recovering well yesterday? Garashi just sighed. I hope I am wrong. The road to the hospital was not too long, and it didn't take long for them to arrive at the hospital gate. Then, under Shushi's guidance, they found Shuemu's ward with ease. Mizuki, let's see. Asuma shouted, but before he finished speaking, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He saw Mizuki lying straight on the hospital bed, his eyes were blank and he didn't respond to their arrival. Like a salted fish that lost its dream. Shuemu, what happened to you, Shuemu? Asuma shouted in shock. Oh no, Shuemu is dead. Bang. Ah, who hit me? Asuma covered his head and shouted. Little brother, don't talk nonsense. A nurse stood behind Asuma with her hands on her hips. What? Is Shuemu still alive? He was breathing well. How did he die? However, the nurse did not intend to answer his question. Instead, she turned to look at Garashi and said, Little Garashi, this student you brought. He may not be able to study with you in the future. Asuma asked in surprise, Wait, what do you mean? The nurse sighed, he has already lost the qualification to be a ninja. However, perhaps this is also a good thing. After living an ordinary life, I don't have to worry about dying in a mission. Damn it, how could this be? Asuma punched the wall hard. If it were any other time, he wouldn't be so uncomfortable. But now he knows that Mizuki became like this because of him. Although it was not his subjective wish that caused all this, he still felt that he owed Mizuki. Kurenai and Shizun, who were more emotional, had already cried in a low voice. Although they didn't have much interaction with Mizuki, seeing a familiar classmate become like this, they felt uncomfortable. Asuma was depressed when he suddenly caught a glimpse of Garashi's dignified expression, and a light flashed in his mind. Garashi, you must have a way, right? Listening to Asuma's cry, Mizuki, who was lying on the hospital bed, also had a glimmer of hope in his eyes. If it's him, maybe he can do it. Maybe, but Garashi frowned and he couldn't make up his mind. Yumiko-san is right, the ninja world is very dangerous if... No, please give me a chance. Hearing this hoarse voice, several people were overjoyed. Mizuki, you're finally alive. Ba, you finally woke up? Mizuki-san, are you okay? Mizuki did not respond but looked straight at Garashi. I have no family, no friends, I don't want to lose my last self. You're wrong, we're all your friends. Garashi shook his head and looked at Mizuki with sincere eyes. But if you insist, I can give it a try. Asuma asked, What do you want to do, Garashi? With Mizuki's current physical condition, if he wants to become a ninja, he must undergo surgery, and there is only one person in Woodleaf who has the ability to complete this surgery. I know, it's Tsunade-sama. I met Tsunade-sama in the hospital a few days ago. Garashi nodded, then sighed. If I knew it would be like this, I would have asked where Tsunade-sama lives in advance. Asuma rubbed his chin. The old man should know where Tsunade-sama lives, I'll go back and ask him. At this time, Shizun raised her right hand weakly. Actually, Tsunade-sama lives with me now. Great. Asuma shouted excitedly, then immediately wondered, But Shizun, why are you living with Tsunade-sama? Are you Tsunade-sama's illegitimate daughter? That's not it. Shizun explained, Tsunade-sama is my uncle's lover. After my uncle passed away, she has been taking care of me at my home. Oh, so that's the case. That's good, let's hurry to find Tsunade-sama to save Mizuki. However, Shizun not only didn't move, but also seemed a little hesitant. Actually, Tsunade-sama hasn't performed surgery for a long time. Kurenai asked puzzledly, Is there no surgery worthy of Tsunade-sama's surgery? Shizun shook her head. Tsunade-sama's hematophobia was kept secret, so she didn't know how to explain it for a while. Garashi saw this and took the initiative to solve the problem. Asma Kurinai, you don't have to participate in the next thing. Asma was depressed. Huh? How can this be? Garashi helplessly spread out his hands and casually made up a reason. The next thing may involve some confidentiality regulations that only medical ninjas can participate in. Hearing this, the two had to agree. Well, remember to let us know if there's any news. At this moment, Mizuki, who was lying on the hospital bed, suddenly said, Please take me with you. At least let me know if I still have the possibility of becoming a ninja. Chapter 29. In the bathroom, Garashi stood quietly in front of the mirror. Although the previous resonance therapy had some effect, it still couldn't break through the last line of defense. This time I'll switch to catharsis therapy. However, it's not easy to vent anger. Shushi gently rubbed his eyebrows and lowered his eyelids. Relatively speaking, anger is perhaps the most difficult emotion to disguise. It's fine to fool children, but there's a risk of being exposed when dealing with people like Tsunade. So, I can only hypnotize myself temporarily. Whoosh, the refreshing water splashed on his face. Garashi raised his head, looked at himself in the mirror and smiled slightly. So, now I'm a good class leader who is completely thinking for Mizuki. Coming out of the bathroom. Sorry to keep you waiting. Shizen shook her head quietly. I'm fine. Mizuki, who was leaning on the crutch, opened his mouth slightly and finally said with difficulty. Thank you. No, I can't gamble anymore. If I gamble again, I'll lose all of Shizen's tuition. But what if I get my money back? I've lost so many times, it's my turn to win. The conversation as if schizophrenia kept echoing in the room. Boom. The door was slammed open and Shizun angrily ran to Tsunade, who was stunned. Tsunade-sama, didn't you say you won't gamble again? Tsunade obviously didn't expect Shizun to appear at noon, and she smiled awkwardly. I haven't gone yet. Shizun's cheeks puffed up and she put her hands on her hips. If I didn't come back today, you must have gone to the casino again. Tsunade was embarrassed when she suddenly caught a glimpse of the two people still standing at the door, and she quickly changed the topic. Shizun, did you invite your classmates to your house for dinner today? Hearing Tsunade's words, Shizun remembered that Garashi-kun was still there. She hurriedly put down her hands on her waist, lowered her head that was overheated and couldn't think, and stood there stiffly. Seeing Shizun in a state of suspension, Tsunade said helplessly, Come in first. Tsunade-sama, sorry to disturb your rest. Tsunade shook her head gently, her eyes fixed on Mizuki, who was leaning on a cane. You came here today for him? Garashi could clearly feel that Mizuki's breathing had become a lot more rapid. Without hesitation he said, It's like this. Student Mizuki was seriously injured by some third-grade bullies yesterday. Today the hospital told us that Mizuki might not be able to be a ninja anymore. Tsunade frowned. Although she had heard about it from Shizun yesterday, she didn't expect it to be this serious. Is Woodleaf School now so chaotic? However, she also knew that now was not the time to pursue the matter. She took a few steps forward and pressed her right hand, which was wrapped in chakra, on Shuei-mu's shoulder. 1 second, 2 seconds. It felt like a century had passed. In this atmosphere, Tsunade finally said slowly. It's indeed very serious. Shuei-mu trembled as he asked, Then do I still have a chance? It's not impossible to recover. Mizuki was ecstatic at first, but soon he heard Tsunade continue, but the surgery is very risky. From the point of view of a medical ninja, I advise you to give up becoming a ninja. Mizuki was stunned, then suddenly looked up. Even if there is only a 10% chance of recovery, I will never give up. Tsunade raised her eyebrows and looked at him with surprise. You're just an ordinary kid, but you have such a belief. At this time, Garashi asked in a timely manner, Tsunade-sama, what is the probability of success? Tsunade pondered for a moment. If I preside over the surgery, the success rate should be 80%. Great, Tsunade-sama, please. But I won't do it. Mizuki's ecstatic face froze. He opened his mouth but didn't speak. He didn't dare to refute the authority of such a big person like Tsunade. He just lowered his head, his eyes full of despair and resentment. For Tsunade, she was just telling the truth. She couldn't preside over the surgery because of her hematophobia. But Mizuki didn't know that in his view, this bad woman was simply playing with his feelings. Why are you doing this to me? Why is everyone so ugly? But at this time, Garashi suddenly shouted, Tsunade-sama, please wait, Mizuki really wants to become a ninja, please give him a chance. Shuei-mu's body stiffened when he heard this. Shushi's words were like a beam of light that shone into his heart. Even Shuei-mu himself did not dare to go against power, but Shushi was arguing with such a big shot for him. I didn't expect that the person I hate the most would be the one who treats me the best. Maybe I just hate myself, I hate myself, I hate myself, but I can't be as bright as him. Tsunade was silent for a moment. Come with me. After that, she led Garashi into the guest room. It's not that I don't want to help him, but I really can't. After the last Ninja World War, I got hematophobia. Tsunade smiled self-deprecatingly. Isn't it ridiculous that as a medical ninja, I'm afraid of blood? P.S. Tsunade has already recognized the protagonist here, and she herself doesn't care about revealing the so-called secret of hematophobia. Tsunade didn't wait for Garashi's ridicule or comfort. Instead, she heard him talk about something else. When I was a child, I heard a wandering warrior from other villages tell such a story. He said that in the far west, there is a country called Sound Country, where there are many powerful musicians, and the most powerful one of them is called Beethoven. Orochi Maru is Otogeikure, land of fields. Tsunade heard it and whispered, Beethoven? What a weird name. But at the peak of his life he began to lose his hearing. Tsunade raised her eyebrows and asked, and then? He didn't surrender to fate. Even in this predicament, he still created countless musical masterpieces and eventually became the most powerful musician in Sound Country. He said that he wanted to grab fate by the throat. Grab fate by the throat. Tsunade looked shocked and was silent for a moment. She didn't dare to look directly at Garashi's expectant eyes. Are you telling this story to encourage me? It's useless, I'm not as brave as Beethoven in the story. Without waiting for Tsunade to finish speaking, Garashi shouted excitedly, I know it's difficult, but if you don't try and think you can't do it, that kind of person is too bad. However, Tsunade was still silent. Even she wasn't sure whether she was afraid of the blood or the memories brought by the blood. Outside the door, Mizuki vaguely heard the fierce roar from the room. It was like an electric shock and tears couldn't stop pouring out. The class leader, he, is actually fighting with that kind of big man for me? Is this the warmth of light? Chapter 30. Garashi didn't know the inside story of hemophobia, but he still persuaded her fiercely, You are one of the Sannin, Tsunade-sama. You are the greatest medical ninja in Woodleaf. You can definitely defeat that damn hemophobia. Tsunade still looked decadent. What's the use of medical skills? Not only can't I save this desperate world, but I can't even save the people I cherish. Garashi was silent for a moment and his tone became heavy. I don't know what kind of setbacks you have encountered, and I don't have the qualification to persuade you to forget the pain, but from the standpoint of a medical ninja, we must be strong. If even we give up, then there will be no light in this world. In this world, everyone's life is not easy, and no one has it easier than others. Many students in our class also lost their families in the war, but these are not reasons for us to give up hope. Or because of their sacrifice we should cherish the present more. Seeing Tsunade's silence, Shushi struck while the iron was hot and pointed to the door. Mizuki has already lost his family and friends. Now, is he going to lose the only dream he has? There was a hint of struggle in Tsunade's eyes, but she finally shook her head. Sorry. I was wrong. You may be the most powerful medical ninja in Woodleaf, but you are not the greatest medical ninja at all. Garashi looked depressed. Such a cowardly Tsunade-sama is really disappointing. Don't say that about Tsunade-sama. Shizun ran in angrily, protecting Tsunade behind her like an old hen, and glared at Garashi. Tsunade-sama must have her own reasons for doing this. Tsunade put her right hand on Shizun's head, smiled bitterly and sighed. He's right, I am indeed a coward. Shizun looked back in disbelief. Tsunade, you? Tsunade shook her head slightly, exhaled and then looked sharply at Garashi. I am cowardly, but do you really have the courage to bear everything? I don't know. Garashi pursed his lips, raised his head, and looked at Tsunade with determination. But I have the belief to protect everyone. Alright then, I will guide you in your cultivation. After that, you will perform the surgery on him yourself. I will perform the surgery? You have to think carefully. The consequences of a mistake in the surgery can be fatal. Tsunade looked at Garashi calmly. Except for me, the success rate of the other Woodleaf members performing this operation will not exceed 30%. As for you, my requirement is that the success rate is not less than 50%. Garashi fell into silence again. At this time, Shuemu also walked in and said excitedly, Class monitor, promise her. I won't have any doubts as long as it's you. Tsunade subconsciously remembered the situation that Shizun mentioned yesterday and thought to herself, sure enough, what an enviable trust. Garashi nodded solemnly and immediately looked at Tsunade. Tsunade-sama, I'm counting on you from now on. The next day, early morning. Garashi was lying on the narrow wooden bed and secretly sighed. It's not easy for a calm person like me to get angry. Fortunately, nothing went wrong yesterday. Although Tsunade still couldn't overcome her hematophobia, Garashi wasn't surprised. After all, in the original manga, Tsunade experienced the temptation of Biyotama's mouth and Edo Tensei before she finally made a decision and overcame her fear of blood. Garashi thought that his words couldn't achieve the effect of Biyotama's mouth, so he took a step back. As long as Tsunade could complete the operation with his help, it was fine. As for Shueimu's change, it's an unexpected surprise. People with his character are more reliable than others once they change their minds. Only those who are filled with darkness will cherish the only ray of light they have. The extension and expansion of the Will of Fire class is so much. Remember to review it when you go back. This is the key point that Naruto-sama pointed out to include in the entrance exam. Okay, class is over. I have to memorize so much. When I become Naruto in the future, the first thing I'll do is to cancel all the exams. I'll also catch these authors and spank them. The author of this book is the Sandaime-sama. Well, that's okay. Amidst the rising and falling complaints, Asuma appeared to be rather embarrassed. After all, this book was the old man's proud work. In his spare time he would even read it alone at home. In order to divert attention, Asuma deliberately shouted. Garashi, how is Mizuki now? Well, I have to let the students know their contributions. Hearing his shout, the others suddenly remembered that an invisible person was missing in the class. Yeah, Mizuki didn't come to school today. I know, he must be slacking off. I was beaten up by my parents yesterday, but I still came to school today. Asuma said in a serious tone. Don't talk nonsense. Mizuki was seriously injured. The hospital said that he may not be able to be a ninja. What? How did it become like this? Although Mizuki isn't likable, but... Asuma waved his hand again. But don't worry, Garashi already took him to Tsunade-sama yesterday. Now maybe the operation has been completed. Right, Garashi? Seeing everyone looking at him, Garashi shook his head with a dignified expression. For some special reasons, Tsunade-sama can't operate on Mizuki. Hearing this, Asuma was also anxious. What should we do? Otherwise I'll go to the old man. He's Naruto, he must have a way. Calm down first. Garashi comforted him. Although Tsunade-sama can't operate on Mizuki, there's still me. Huh? What do you mean? Tsunade-sama will guide me and then I'll operate on Mizuki. Everyone in the class heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Shushi's words. In their view, the class leader was more reliable than Tsunade-sama. Phew, that's great. With the class leader here, Mizuki-san will definitely be able to come back. I was almost scared to death. I'm not happy. I really want to go and beat up the third years again. That's right, Mizuki almost couldn't be a ninja. Let's find a time to beat up those bastards again. Asuma, Shimizu, Garashi. Just as everyone was fiercely discussing the feasibility of beating people up, a few shouts joined in at an inappropriate time. Then all kinds of fierce and irritable gazes were cast outside the classroom. Both sides' gazes met, and Shunyin, who was at the door, couldn't help but sweat a few drops of cold sweat. Did he hear wrongly just now? This group of first years actually wanted to beat them up again. Also, what was with this fierce gaze? Were these first years all demons? Chapter 31. Asuma very consciously took 2 steps forward, rubbed his fists and said, You brat, did you come here looking for a beating? Hearing Asuma's words, everyone in the classroom laughed. They were in a bad mood, and this bastard took the initiative to come to their door. Seeing the smiles on the faces of the first years getting more and more ferocious, Shunyin quickly stopped. Wait, I'm not here to fight with you. With that, he turned his gaze to Garashi. Shimizu, Garashi, take care of your followers. Your skill of provocation is not very good. Garashi said with his hands open. There are no followers here, only my companions. Of course, in the eyes of the person, what kind of world it is, so people like you don't understand the meaning of companions at all. Of course, the people in Garashi's class wouldn't be provoked by a single sentence, but they were still a little unhappy. After listening to Garashi's words, they all arrogantly retorted back. That's right, what about your previous companions? The way I see it, your companions have all abandoned you. Shunyin was depressed hearing this, but he couldn't refute it. Because when they heard that he wanted to regain the glory of the Uchiha, his companions either said that someone in their family was married and couldn't come, or that the toilet paper in the mall was at a discount and they had to buy it. Do they really think he's a fool? If they want to make up a reason, at least make up a decent one. Seeing that Shunian was speechless, Asma's eyes lit up, and he mocked in an extremely annoying tone, "Could it be that we were right? Diske, you're really a failure as a person." Shunian waved his hand in embarrassment. "Don't talk, I'm not here to look for you today." As he spoke, he widened his eyes and tried his best to pretend to be very imposing as he looked at Shushi. "I'll get back up from where I fell. So, I'll take back the glory that you lost with my own hands." Garashi blinked, even he couldn't figure out what the other party was thinking for a while. Why else would it be said that mental patients have a wide range of thoughts? Thinking of this, Garashi helplessly spread out his hands. "Alright then, how are you going to take back your glory? I want to defeat you in front of everyone." Xiongyan shouted with a fierce gaze, but before he could finish his words, he was glared at by the people behind Garashi. His imposing manner instantly withered like a rotten fish. "I want to have a friendly exchange with you," Asma said disdainfully, "and you say you're not here to pick a fight with us." The corner of Xiongyan's mouth twitched. Of course he wasn't here to pick a fight. 1 against 69, who could take it? Garashi smiled and said, "It doesn't seem fair for your third year to fight my first year." Xiongyan was in a difficult position. Although Shimizu Garashi did not participate in the battle last time because he had to heal Mizuki, it was not difficult to infer that Asma's strength was not weak based on the battle at the beginning of the school term and the strength that he had displayed in the group battle. It would be fine if he fought with all his might, but if his hands and feet were tied, he didn't have much confidence. Then I won't use the three bodies technique. That should be fine, right? That's not necessary. Garashi clenched his hands and stood on the table. "As long as I win, you can promise me one condition." Xiongyan asked with some vigilance. "What condition?" "First of all, I won't be your little brother." In his mind, this despicable guy must want to take him as his subordinate. "Of course not." Garashi smiled helplessly and immediately said, "I just hope that if you lose you can apologize to Mizuki, and also to those classmates who have been bullied by you before." Hearing Garashi's condition, the admiration in the eyes of the surrounding students became more and more intense, and the eyes looking at Xiongyan were full of disdain. Compared to this Uchiha, their class leader was simply too imposing. Xiongyan opened his mouth. He didn't expect that the other party would use this as a condition. Obviously he didn't have much to do with him and he was a stranger who he never knew. Why would he do this for those people? You know, this is a great opportunity to recruit him, the genius of the Uchiha clan. Even as an opponent, Xiongyan instinctively felt respect in his heart. "I promise you." "Well then let's go out now." Garashi didn't reject fighting, he didn't agree to those bad people's one-on-one proposal. In fact, it was more to strengthen the cohesion of the class. As for now, appropriate showing of strength is also a necessary means to strengthen leadership. Of course, this is also based on the premise that he has already understood the strength of the other party from the group fight the day before yesterday. On the other side, Garashi-kun won't be in danger, right? Shizun clasped her hands and asked worriedly. "It's a little troublesome, that bastard's strength is not weaker than mine." Asma looked dignified. "Well then I'm relieved." Shizun patted her chest with relief. Asma suddenly turned back with a face full of question marks. He felt offended. For children who are energetic and eager to be recognized by others, after learning one or two ninjutsu, there are many who run to the school to show off in front of the whole school. But this battle is different. One is a super newcomer who stirred up the storm as soon as he entered the school, and the other is a ferocious bully who makes all the grades pale. So many people are very interested in this battle. Before Garashi and Shizun walked to the field, the guardrail of the teaching building on each floor was full of people. "Uchiha Shunian, that guy has been beaten silly, he even dares to trouble the first grade. Who knows, anyway the Uchiha's mental state is not normal. Yes, that bastard even snatched my lollipop before. The first grade must defeat him." Uchiha Shunian didn't know the evaluation of the people above him, or even if he knew he wouldn't care. After finishing this seal of opposition, Shunian directly grabbed a shuriken from the tool bag at his waist and threw it at Garashi. "Shuriken throwing jutsu? If you saw the battle 2 months ago, you should know that it happens to be what I'm best at." Garashi held a kunai and easily bounced off all the shurikens that were thrown at him from all directions. "If you don't have any other." "Wait, what is this?" Garashi said and was shocked to find that there was another shuriken hidden in the shadow of the last shuriken he blocked. Without much time to think, Garashi hurriedly dodged sideways. "Oh, this is the shadow shuriken jutsu that hides the second shuriken in a blind spot. To be able to dodge like this, you are indeed very powerful. It's a pity that any mistake in the battle with the Uchiha will lead to defeat." Shunyan sneered coldly as if he knew the future. He appeared in the direction Garashi was dodging in advance. After sending Garashi flying, he stepped on him. The so-called strongest newcomer is only at this level? In front of the name of the Uchiha, you are nothing. Garashi couldn't help but cry, I am too weak, Shunyan-sama, please accept me as your younger brother. Shunyan looked up and laughed wildly, ha, what is that fool laughing about? I don't know, maybe the shock was too big and he lost his mind. Shunyan was abruptly awakened by the annoying words that drifted into her ears in a daze, coupled with a trace of coolness coming from her neck. Then he saw that Shimizu Garashi, who was supposed to be under his foot, was holding a kunai at his neck. Was that a genjutsu? Shunyan was taken aback at first, then he immediately woke up and looked at Garashi with grief and indignation. Why do you, a medical ninja, need to use genjutsu? Garashi said with a natural look, as a medical ninja, I learn a few genjutsu to make the patient forget the pain, isn't it reasonable? Chapter 32. On the other side of the field, Kurenai looked at Asuma with a strange look. You said that guy's strength is not weaker than yours and he was killed by Garashi. So, Garashi usually let you win, right? Asuma was embarrassed and argued, how would I know that guy would be so stupid, he didn't guard against Garashi's genjutsu at all. Shizun weakly interjected, Garashi-kun is a medical ninja, it's normal for him not to guard against genjutsu, isn't it? Asuma and Kurenai looked at each other and smiled awkwardly, haha, isn't it common sense to be careful of medical ninjas' genjutsu? The people who were waiting to watch a good show in the teaching building were also speechless. Is this guy really not here to be funny? It's really boring, it's over already? They aren't playing us, are they? He's an Uchiha, he was killed by an ordinary person with genjutsu. That's right, even an ordinary person. Wait, you call this an ordinary person? A few of the third-year delinquents mixed in with the crowd had a face of relief and lingering fear. Fortunately, we didn't follow Boss Shunyan's stupid actions. That first-year brat is simply a monster among monsters. Yeah, obviously Boss Shunyan is so strong, but he was killed by a genjutsu. You still call him boss? If you ask me, this idiot will only cause trouble for us, it's better to get rid of him as soon as possible. Well, that makes sense. In the field, Garashi took back his kunai and said with a smile, Shunyan-san, don't forget your promise. Go back to class, you'll be late. Go back to class. Seeing Garashi's indifferent look as if he didn't care about this battle at all, coupled with the constant ridicule around him, Shunyan's eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of blood mist. You bastard, don't look at me like that. This is a tomo? Although it's only the right eye, it's still an amazing achievement. Seeing the single tomo spinning in Shunyan's scarlet eyes, Garashi was truly surprised. Except for some unreasonable geniuses, being able to open the Sharingan at the age of 8, even if it's only one eye, is definitely regarded as a genius. You know, in many people's eyes, Uchiha Sasuke was even more talented than Itachi, but under the stimulation of his whole clan being killed, he only opened one tomo. Sure enough, the sicker a person is, the better his talent is. Garashi sighed in his heart. Then he chuckled and said, Student Shunyan, is there anything else? Seeing Garashi's relaxed and calm appearance, Shunyan only realized in hindsight that he seemed to have already lost. Even if he had a breakthrough now, the other party had no reason to fight him again. So uncomfortable. Shunyan's face was sullen and depressed. Out of the corner of his eyes, he suddenly caught a glimpse of his younger brothers who said that they were going to the mall to buy toilet paper at a reduced price, but in the end they were mixed in the crowd to see him make a fool of himself. Shimizu Garashi, I will apologize to your classmate according to the agreement, and the classmates who were bullied by me before. But don't you want to increase the stakes a little? Garashi hesitated for a moment, and as if he had made up his mind, he asked, How do you want to expand the bet? This guy is really easy to fool. He obviously saw that I had awakened the Sharingan, but after being provoked by me, he still couldn't help but take the bait. Shunyan laughed in his heart, and inexplicably felt a sense of superiority in IQ. Let's fight again as long as you win. Shunyan said and suddenly gnashed his teeth. No matter if I lose or win this game, I will take my companions and apologize to your classmate and the people who were bullied by us before. Hearing the conversation between the two, the onlookers who were watching the show really understood why Garashi was fighting. Wow. This first-year student is actually helping us seek justice. It's so touching, he obviously doesn't know us. No matter, I'm going to fail, I'm going to repeat, I'm going to wait to join them. For a moment, almost everyone had a good impression of this freshman little son. As for the several delinquents who were mixed in the crowd to watch the show, they were so angry that they vomited blood. This idiot boss actually sold them out like this. Garashi thought for a moment and then nodded seriously. Since it's for everyone, then I have to skip this class. Xiaonian almost went berserk. He thought that the other side was worried about losing too badly, but it turned out that the other side was entangled because of such a trivial matter. Thinking of this, he almost roared in front of Garashi, I have awakened the Sharingan now, can't you respect me? But when he thought of his cold, strong persona, he suppressed his anger and said, you have to be ready, I'm going. With that, he put his right hand into the tool bag at his waist. But for some reason at this moment he inexplicably remembered the scene he saw in the previous genjutsu, and then the right hand in the tool bag subconsciously touched the shuriken. Shuriken shadow technique. Facing the shuriken shooting at him like a rain of flowers, Garashi calmly threw all the shurikens he had prepared in his hand, and then, with incomparable accuracy, he shot down the shurikens shot by Xiaonian one by one. He actually shot down my shurikens with only shurikens. This kind of extremely accurate control, even with the Sharingan, I can't do it. Xiaonian couldn't help but widen his eyes. Of course he knew the difficulty of this method. But I hid in the corner. Ding, the last shuriken also fell to the ground. Seeing this situation, Xiaonian's eyes were blank. Hee, a dream is just a dream. At this time he suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Oh no, I forgot his chakra line. Xiaonian instinctively dodged to the left, and then taking advantage of the gap between the shurikens turning in the air, he hurriedly took out a kunai from the tool bag to block. Wait, this speed. Xiaonian's right Magatama rotated rapidly, and with a wave of his arm, he easily bounced off all of Garashi's attacks. Too slow? No, it was slowed down by my Sharingan. Xiaonian was ecstatic. It turned out that this is the real reason why the Uchiha can be famous in the ninja world. The people who were shocked by Garashi's extremely accurate shurikens were once again refreshed by Xiaonian. Amazing, is this the power of the Sharingan? Obviously he was killed by Shimizu Garashi's genjutsu before, but after awakening the Sharingan, he can actually suppress the opponent. This is simply cheating. No way, this is the foundation of the Uchiha. Chapter 33. Under Garashi's increasingly violent offensive, Xiaonian was still walking leisurely, just casually waving his kunai and easily deflecting the shurikens coming from all directions. Then, step by step, he approached the opponent. In front of this eye, all your efforts are useless. This is the real glory of the Uchiha clan. It is a gap that ordinary people like you can never catch up with. As a medical ninja, how are you going to deal with my close attack? In Shunyan's view, although his taijutsu is not very good, dealing with a medical ninja shouldn't be too much of a problem. After all, he also saw Garashi's battle 2 months ago, and his taijutsu is still a lot worse than his. The only thing worth paying attention to is the slightly troublesome medical ninjutsu. However, Garashi sighed helplessly, Shunyan-san, has anyone ever told you that you are really long-winded? Then, in front of Shunyan's incredulous eyes, Garashi quickly approached and heavily landed a knee on Shunyan's lower abdomen, directly sending him flying. Enduring the pain of vomiting bile, Shunyan struggled to get up and shouted again with grief and indignation, What? Why do you know taijutsu as a medical ninja? Garashi pondered for a moment. As a medical ninja, it's reasonable for me to learn some taijutsu to protect myself, right? Of course, he won't give up the practice of taijutsu. After all, he has been coveting Tsunade's monstrous strength for a long time. As for his bad taijutsu before, it's entirely because he didn't have a teacher to guide him. He didn't dare to practice it casually. After becoming close friends with Asma, he naturally benefited from Asma-sensei's guidance. Although Takeuchi Daikawa is only a Tokubetsu Jonin, he is indeed very capable in systematic teaching. At least he barely made up for the shortcomings in taijutsu. Shunyan shouted aggrievedly, But your taijutsu 2 months ago was obviously not as good as mine. Shushi nodded and said matter-of-factly, Yes, but that was 2 months ago. Uzumaki Naruto can fight 6 dojutsu in a year. I, Shimizu Garashi, can improve my taijutsu a little bit every 2 months. Xiaonian's head was filled with question marks. Although the information had a time limit, it was still outdated after 2 months. This information had lost its effectiveness too quickly. If he's progressing at this rate, could it be that, when I fight him again in 2 days, it'll become an instant kill? Xiaonian shuddered as she thought of this possibility. In other words, this is my only chance to defeat him? There's nothing to be afraid of, it's just taijutsu, at least his genjutsu won't work on me since I have Sharingan, right? Xiaonian didn't dare to think about it anymore. He was afraid that if he continued to think about it, he wouldn't even have the courage to fight. Doppelganger technique. Xiaoyan quickly formed a hand seal, and 5 of his doppelgangers surrounded Shushi. However, Garashi did not hesitate at all as he charged towards one of them, completely ignoring the attacks of the other Xiaoyan. Sure enough, this guy's perception is too strong. Xiaoyan cursed in his heart and didn't dare to pretend anymore. While holding a kunai in his right hand and stabbing Garashi, his left hand secretly touched a ball of steel wire. Garashi slightly sideways to avoid the attack and hit Xiaoyan's chest with his elbow. Now, Xiaoyan didn't try to dodge. Instead, he endured the pain in his chest and used the steel wire in his left hand to wrap around Shu. Then, Ketan, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. The flame quickly spread on the steel wire until Garashi was completely engulfed. This level of attack is far from enough. Xiaoyan, who saw the battle 2 months ago, naturally understood that the opponent's use of the Trijutsu was also very powerful. Just as Xiaoyan was looking for a flaw and was preparing for the next round of attack, the hot flame dispersed, and a charred body fell heavily to the ground. Xiaoyan? Xiaoyan only felt that his IQ was seriously insulted. He didn't believe that the opponent could be killed by this level of attack. Wait, is it his genjutsu again? Xiaoyan was alert, and then suddenly the noisy voice sounded in his ears. I lost just like that. How boring. This is the Uchiha clan? It's really funny. No one really thinks that the Sharingan is strong, right? Hearing this, Xiaoyan was irritated. Damn it, I'm under genjutsu again, wake up for me. But at this time, the charred body on the ground suddenly rushed towards him. Then, before Xiaoyan could react, a familiar cold feeling came from his neck. Xiaoyan asked in a daze, wait, is this still a genjutsu? Garashi chuckled and took back his kunai. My body is not, but the voice you heard is. It turned out that this time it was a sonic genjutsu. Xiaoyan subconsciously opened his mouth and didn't know what to say, as if his spirit was drained, and he knelt on the ground. I have the Sharingan, but I lost to an ordinary person. The glory of the Uchiha clan has been completely lost in my hands. He didn't even dare to raise his head, he didn't dare to look at the people around him, he only felt that there were countless eyes full of ridicule and malice behind him. Shushi was just about to walk out when he heard Tang Wulin's words. He stopped in his tracks. Glory won't disappear just because you lost a battle. If you really want to talk about it, the glory you speak of was lost the first time you bullied the weak. Xiaoyan suddenly raised his head, looked at Garashi and shouted hysterically, what do you know, it's all because of my efforts that no one in the school dares to say bad things about the Uchiha clan. Garashi looked at him with calm and pure eyes. Do you really think so? For some reason, Xiaoyan didn't dare to look directly at Kuroto's eyes for a while, and asked with a lack of confidence, Is there a problem? The corners of Shushi's mouth curled up slightly. This guy is so young and innocent that he's kind of cute. It's easy to fool him. If you really think so, you won't be confused by my genjutsu. It's because you know that they don't recognize you at all, and even your so-called companions are saying bad things about the Uchiha clan behind their backs, so you are afraid that this lie will be exposed. No, it's not like that. They are all afraid of me, they are all in awe of the name of the Uchiha clan. This is just a lie that you weave yourself, a dream that you use to deceive yourself. Do you mean that the Uchiha clan needs to rely on lies to numb their own clan? Hearing this, even Xiaoyan himself was confused. Have I really been deceiving myself all this time? Seeing that Xiaoyan's worldview has been turned upside down, Garashi felt that it's time to stop. At least, I definitely don't think that eliminating arrogance and prejudice can be achieved by violence. Xiaoyan asked subconsciously, then what should I do? Do you love your family? Although a little ashamed, Xiaoyan, who is now in a brainwashed state, nodded, yes. Then does your family love you? Yes. Garashi said seriously, kindness is always mutual. If you don't even love the world, then why do you ask the world to love you? If it's still not enough, then add time, time will prove everything. After being poured this bowl of chicken soup for the soul, Xiaoyan felt that his whole body was healed and sublimated. Seeing Garashi turn around and leave, Xiaoyan looked at his back and shouted, I know, I will try my best to change all of this. Garashi didn't stop this time, he just waved his hand. Before that, go and ask them for forgiveness for what you have done before. Chapter 34. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, a year has passed. Combat class. Wind release, great breakthrough. 100 mountain rush. My naming skills are really bad. I originally wanted to learn from Sakura rushed to name individual techniques. Here I want to collect names with Naruto's flavor. The strong hurricane that came out of Asuma's mouth was blown apart by Garashi's punch, and the airflow scattered in all directions. In the midst of the dust, Garashi suddenly jumped out, raised his arm high and fiercely hammered down. Boom! The ground suddenly cracked open, forming a crater with a diameter of 5 meters. Looking at the broken pieces of his substitute in the crater, Asuma's back was covered in cold sweat. Why do I feel that Garashi is becoming more and more violent? Seeing Garashi rushing towards him again, Asuma didn't dare to be negligent. While throwing out shurikens to disrupt Garashi's attack, he quickly formed hand seals. Fire release, dragon fire technique. Seeing a dragon spitting fire blocking his way, Garashi's expression didn't change as he waved his fist to meet it. Of course, the average taijutsu ninja wouldn't dare to play like this, but for him, it's just a matter of condensing yang release, chakra to heal his wounds in advance. There's no need to dodge. The ferocious fire dragon was directly blown apart, turning into sparks that splashed everywhere. Even Asuma was a little dumbfounded. Garashi wasn't this reckless last time. But he didn't have time to think too much. He could only reluctantly form a few hand seals. Wind release, vacuum, pain heaven kick. In the middle of the attack, Garashi fiercely stepped on the ground, the earth shook violently, and Asuma's body slightly tilted to one side. Damn, I formed the wrong hand seal. Asuma's eyes widened. The small air mass that should have been spat out from his mouth could only be ejected from another channel. Puff! Hearing this mellow and long sound, Asuma's face turned red. Just as he was distracted, a gust of wind blew in his face. Asuma looked up and saw that Garashi's fist had stopped right in front of him. On the other side, the 8 gods had already made their judgment. Shimizu Garashi wins. Both parties formed this seal of reconciliation. Garashi-kun is really too powerful. Even such a ferocious fire dragon was torn apart by him. Speaking of which, Asuma is really tenacious. Yeah, I also thought he would have given up on challenging the class leader a long time ago. Although he hasn't won even once, but I'm sorry, when I think about how his winning percentage is ranked last in the class, I feel that he's too pitiful. Amidst the whispers of the surrounding students, Garashi patted Asuma on the shoulder. How are you? Are you alright? Fine. Don't worry, he's already used to losing. Ibishi, who was getting more and more sharp-tongued, suddenly said from the side. Asuma widened his eyes. You bastard, stop looking down on me. I've improved a lot now. In another 2, 3, 4 years, that's right, in another 4 years I will definitely be able to defeat Garashi. As he said that, Asuma suddenly caught a glimpse of Shizuan writing something in a small notebook. Shizuan, what are you doing? Oh, I'll remember what you said. If you still lose after 4 years, Asuma put on an aggrieved look and said gloomily, Shizuan, even you've learned bad things. At this moment, the 8 gods opened his hands and said, Students, quiet down. I'm very happy that everyone has been promoted to the 2nd grade. From today onwards, you can be considered as seniors in the school. Hearing this, everyone's face showed an eager and excited expression. They couldn't wait to show off their seniors in front of the freshmen. But don't think that you can relax. If you don't work hard, you might be surpassed by the freshmen one day. Many people secretly curled their lips. They had already figured out Teacher Yagami's routine. It was his first time as a teacher, but he liked to imitate other teachers and say that they were the worst batch of students he had ever taught. Wasn't that right? He had only taught one batch, so of course it could be said that they were the worst batch. Seeing that the crowd didn't seem to believe it, the 8 gods straightened his face and said, Don't think that I'm joking. In this batch of freshmen, there are geniuses who are not inferior to Garashi. No way, there are geniuses who are on the same level as the class monitor? Oh, the freshmen are indeed monsters. Asuma muttered, Teacher Yagami is too much. He categorized me as them, just like that. Ibishi couldn't help but say, Don't worry, maybe Teacher Yagami didn't even include you. Seeing this, the 8 gods nodded with satisfaction. Now, do you know the pressure of the previous batch of seniors? Hearing this, everyone smiled awkwardly. Indeed, the previous batch of seniors was really miserable. Not only were they bullied by the seniors of the previous batch, but they also had to bear the pressure from the freshmen. After explaining the matters to pay attention to at the beginning of the school, the 8 gods turned his attention to Garashi. Shushi, with your current strength, you should be able to apply for early graduation. What do you think about this? Everyone who had been laughing and joking suddenly fell silent. They looked at Shushi anxiously. What's wrong? Are we going to separate? Seeing that Garashi was silent, the 8 gods said, except for the time of war, the record of the school's earliest graduation is 7 years old. If you apply for graduation now, you can break the previous record. In the ninja world where geniuses are prevalent, creating various records is a very boastful thing. Therefore the eyes of the students also dimmed. They are reluctant to part with Garashi, but they also don't want Garashi to give up his own honor. However, for Garashi, he doesn't want to graduate early. He is now living well, how can he give up his plan because of such a boring thing? Moreover, Woodleaf is not a place for charity. Once he graduates, he will have to perform tasks in the team. After all, a large part of the expenses of maintaining Woodleaf's operation comes from the commission of completing tasks. Except for some special circumstances, ninjas must complete the assigned task quota every month before they can rest. For Garashi, who is in the stage of rapid improvement, naturally he doesn't want to waste precious time on such boring tasks. Of course, it's not good to stay in school, so his statement naturally becomes, the more knowledge I learn, the more I understand my own insignificance and ignorance. For such a shallow person like me, graduating early is not a suitable choice. Garashi said, glancing at the crowd with gentle eyes, more importantly, I promise to advance and retreat together with everyone. The playground was silent for a moment, and then suddenly burst into cheers like a tide. Great, I knew the class leader wouldn't abandon us. Oh, it's all our fault for dragging Garashi down. From today on, I will double the training intensity. On the side, the 8 gods smiled subtly. Oh, do you think that teacher won't use new tricks? Chapter 35. Woodleaf Soil School. Haha, thank you so much for yesterday, Rin. A little boy wearing goggles was bewildered as he thanked the little girl beside him. Hee, that's what I should do. With her hands behind her back, Rin's face was filled with a youthful and lively smile. But, bordered soil, next time you have to come earlier, don't be like yesterday where you couldn't even make it for the registration. Bordered soil nodded like a chick pecking at rice, and then racked his brain to think of a topic. Rin, I arrived late yesterday, can you tell me about the other students? Of course. Rin approached bordered soil and whispered to him, this is Suzuki-san, that's EY-san. However, Rin obviously didn't notice that a certain pervert wasn't listening to her at all, and just stared at her side profile with a rippling face. Rin's blushing face is so beautiful. Bordered soil thought so infatuatedly, and then as if struck by lightning, wait, Rin blushed when she saw another boy. Bordered soil hurriedly returned to his senses. Rin, you spoke too fast, I didn't hear you clearly, who was the last student? It was Kakashi. Looking in a certain direction, Rin shyly lowered her head. Sure enough, Rin blushed when she saw that white-haired brat. Bordered soil instantly pulled a long face and said sourly, other than being a little more handsome than me, he doesn't seem to be anything special. That's not it. Rin gently shook her finger. Yesterday when we were registering, a teacher said that Kakashi's talent is no less than that of Garashi, senpai. Garashi, senpai, I seem to have heard that before? Bordered soil whispered, and just as he was about to ask more, there was a sudden commotion from the other side. You brat, how dare you bump into me, are you looking down on us seniors? I'm not. Ha, then you're saying that I deliberately bumped into you. That's not what I meant. Then you deliberately bumped into me. Hurry up and pay up, otherwise don't blame me for teaching you the dignity of a senior. Bordered soil looked towards the source of the voice and saw a few people dressed like delinquents surrounding a student with a watermelon hairstyle, scolding him. Lin exclaimed softly, it's Metke. Oh no, those people are the tyrants of the 4th grade. They love to bully the newcomers. What? Watermelon Head is in danger? When Bordered Soil heard that his classmate had been surrounded, he immediately rushed over with his blood boiling. Bordered Soil, wait. Lin hurriedly shouted and followed after him. There's actually a newcomer standing up for someone else? Could it be that it's another monster like that Shimizu Garashi? Thinking back to last year's tragic experience, the delinquents' expressions all turned ugly. On the first day there's a classmate who I don't know who helped me. Dad was right, this is hot-blooded youth. Metke shouted with tears flowing down his face, giving a thumbs up to Bordered Soil. Bordered Soil's body shuddered. Why does he feel that something is wrong with this Watermelon Head? Seeing the other's fiery eyes, Bordered Soil hurriedly turned his gaze to the delinquents. You guys don't bully him. On the other side, several delinquents were whispering to each other. I heard that there's a monster newcomer named Hataki Kakashi among this year's freshmen. Could it be him? Really? But why do I feel that this kid is stupid? You can't say that. Isn't that idiot Uchiha Shunin very strong? It makes sense, let's test him first. After the discussion, one of the delinquents stood up and said, Hataki Kakashi, don't. Interrupting you guys, I'm Kakashi. The white-haired boy who was calmly watching the show suddenly said. Wait, then he is. You bastards, remember this uncle's name is Bordered Soil Uchiha. Bordered Soil felt seriously insulted and shouted loudly. Uchiha? Bordered Soil Uchiha? The delinquents looked at each other, then turned around with a grin. Well, I'll let you see the power of an Uchiha. Bordered Soil Uchiha secretly glanced at Rin, roared and rushed up, then typed GG. In just one round, Bordered Soil Uchiha was trampled under his feet. What a weak strength, such a weak strength came to save me, it's really touching. On the side, Metke cried loudly. Bordered Soil Uchiha was almost angered to death by him. Bastard, I just accidentally fell down. Everyone was speechless, the corners of their mouths twitched. How can you fall directly under someone's feet? Don't be afraid, I'll save you. After one round, Metke and Bordered Soil Uchiha were trampled side by side under his feet. I thought this year's freshmen were very powerful, this is it? If you don't have the strength, don't learn from others. The surrounding freshmen were angry, but they didn't dare to refute. Many people secretly looked at Kakashi, expecting the strongest newcomer in the teacher's mouth to stand up for them. Unfortunately, the other party didn't even have the interest to move his feet. At this moment, a slightly deep voice came from the distance. Kento Ryota, you're bullying your classmates again. Hearing this voice, the group of delinquents gnashed their teeth and shouted, Uchiha Shunin, why do you always pester us? Because I want to be a good person now. Damn, we'll fight you. The group of delinquents rushed up, the group of delinquents typed GG. Strong strength. Kakashi, who had been indifferent before, had a flash of surprise in his eyes. Bordered Soil shouted cheerfully, that's cousin Shunyin, he's very powerful, right? Metke nodded seriously, then asked doubtfully, are you all from the Uchiha clan? Why are you so weak? Bordered Soil felt as if his lungs were about to explode. He glared at Metke for a long time before saying, I'm still young. Can't I? After doing good deeds every day, Shunyin suddenly looked at Garashi's position. I heard that among the freshmen, there is someone with the same talent as Garashi, but now it seems that you are much worse than him. Kakashi frowned. How would you know if we haven't fought? Shunyin shook his head and said sincerely, no, the result has already been decided. Because your tolerance is not as good as his. At some point, the Bordered Soil came over and asked in confusion, tolerance? Shunyin boasted seriously, if it's Garashi he will definitely stand up. He only sees himself, but Garashi sees the world. Although Kakashi was a little unhappy in his heart, he was too lazy to refute. Obito, on the other hand, was beaming with joy. Haha, then my tolerance is also greater than his? Shunyin hesitated for a moment. No, you just don't think about it. Seeing Bordered Soil's face full of resentment, Lin took the initiative to come to his rescue. Shunyin-senpai, thank you for helping us. Shunyin's eyes were calm. Don't worry, doing good deeds before challenging him can also strengthen my own beliefs. After seeing Shunyin's strength and suddenly hearing this news, Metke excitedly ran over and asked, Shunyin-senpai, who are you going to challenge? Shunyin took a deep breath. It's the one who guided me out of my mistakes, Shimizu Garashi. Chapter 36. Wow, it's Garashi-senpai. On the side, Rin's eyes sparkled like little stars as she cheered. Seeing Rin's reaction was more serious than when she saw Kakashi, Bordered Soil instantly realized the crisis. Danger. Mike Guy asked excitedly, is it a senior from the upper grade? Rin shook her head. No, Garashi-senpai is a second-year senior. Bordered Soil curled his lips. What, so he's only 1 year older than us? You're not a medical ninja, of course you don't understand Garashi-senpai's power. Rin clasped her hands in front of her chest and said with admiration, Senpai is Tsunade-sama's disciple, and it only took him a year to be able to perform some small operations in the hospital. Bordered Soil scratched his head. Is he very powerful? Why do I feel like he can do it too? Metke looked at Shunyin in confusion. Senpai, the person you want to challenge is a medical ninja? Even if Shunyin had already accepted it, when he was suddenly asked this question, his body trembled, and immediately there was a trace of grief in his eyes. Medical ninjas are the most annoying. Everyone around looked strange. Why do they feel that Shunyin-senpai's voice is a little bit sobbing? This must be an illusion. Metke was surprised. It's only a year. And that senpai already has the same level of strength as Shunyan senpai? Shunyan calmed down his restless heart and once again returned to his calm state. To be precise, it's 2 months. He only used 2 months to surpass my 3 years of effort. Bordered Soil shouted in disbelief. How is it possible, cousin Shunyan? You're a genius who could awaken your Sharingan at the age of 8. My Sharingan was awakened in the battle with him. Shunyan's face was full of sadness, and his eyes were filled with reminiscence. It can even be said that if I didn't awaken my Sharingan, I wouldn't even have the ability to resist. Hearing his words, Bordered Soil and the others couldn't help but widen their eyes. Senior Shunyan was so strong, but he wasn't a match for Senior Garashi? This was especially true for Bordered Soil. He had often heard the adults in the clan talking about how powerful cousin Shunyan was, but he didn't expect his dreams to be shattered on the first day. Even Kakashi, who pretended to be indifferent but was actually listening to the gossip, was surprised. He heard from his father that the Uchiha were extremely proud. To be able to make the proud Uchiha say such words. Is it Shimizu Garashi? I'm starting to get interested in this boring school life. Metke, who yearned for youth and hot-bloodedness, looked at Shunyan with shining eyes. Senior, can we also watch the battle? Of course, no problem. Shunyan shuddered under this fervent gaze and quickly averted his gaze. Also, you can also attend the school festival on the way. Lin asked curiously, school festival? What's that? Shunyan organized his words. It's a place where people of all grades form clubs according to their hobbies, and then invite classmates or people from the village to participate. In short, it's a place for you to meet friends and show yourself. Wow, it sounds so interesting. Lin clapped her hands happily, but soon she had a new doubt. But why haven't I heard of it before? Because this was proposed by Garashi before the last semester's holiday. Shunyan said, patting Bordered Soil's shoulder. You're lucky you're just in time for the first school festival. Metkai's eyes lit up as he listened. Great, I'm going to form the Youth and Hot-Bloodedness Club. Is there anyone who wants to join? However, as long as he looked at them, everyone around him quickly turned their heads away as if avoiding a snake or a scorpion. Seeing Metkai's unwilling look, Bordered Soil quickly changed the topic. Will there really be people participating in this school festival? After all, that Garashi Sr. was just a newcomer last year. Shunyan, who had already become Garashi's boaster, said in the most determined tone, if it's him, there definitely won't be a problem. Without waiting for them to ask, Shunyan took the initiative to explain, this is because everyone in our grade is very convinced by him. Speaking of which, for Garashi to have such a reputation, it's partly because of me. I know it must be because cousin Shunyan used to be the most powerful person in school. Bordered Soil made the connection, his face full of indignation. After that Shimizu Garashi defeated you, he took your position. If he's powerful, that might be true. Shunyan had a strange look in his eyes, but if we're talking about status, does being the most hated person in school count? Bordered Soil tilted his head and maliciously acted cute. What do you mean? Of course it's because I used to be a bully among bullies. Shunyan didn't feel embarrassed at all and frankly said with a smile, those bastards who embarrassed you just now were actually my little brothers. Everyone around exclaimed in unison, what? Bordered Soil also stuttered, what the hell is going on? It seems that the clan didn't mention how much of a bastard I used to be. That's right, they only care about the awakening of the Sharingan. Shunyan laughed self-deprecatingly, then put his hands on Bordered Soil's shoulders and sternly said, I used to be too extreme and didn't understand the true meaning of love. I thought that relying on violence to make everyone respect Uchiha was love for my father, so I didn't need to do anything to get the love of my classmates. It was Garashi who woke me up and made me come out of the illusion. So cheesy. Cousin Shunyan, aren't you embarrassed at all? Bordered Soil felt goosebumps all over his body, and just as he was thinking about how to escape the claws of Shunyan, the corner of his eyes suddenly floated to the side of Rin. Wait. If I can be as thick-skinned as cousin Shunyan, can I say in front of Rin that I love? Thinking of this, Bordered Soil's eyes became very firm. Cousin Shunyan, I understand. Shunyan nodded with relief, but also a little sad. Sometimes when a mistake has been made, even if you do more, there is no way to undo it, so don't be a bastard like me in the future. Bordered Soil nodded as if he didn't understand, but Metke patted him on the shoulder. It's okay Sunyan-sen, Bordered Soil is so weak he can't be a bad guy. Bordered Soil staggered, and almost fell directly to the ground. After barely stabilizing his body, he looked at Metke with resentful eyes. Although this guy is speaking for him, he can't be happy at all. Bordered soil has such a reliable companion, it seems that he won't be like me. Xiongyan sighed in his heart, then waved and said, "Let's go, the school festival will be held in the grove behind the school." Chapter 37. Are there any students who want to join our gourmet club? We have the Akimichi clan's top barbecue students here. Friends who like insects, come here, our president is the Aburame clan's insect hatching expert. Along the way there were new and interesting things everywhere. While the freshmen were dazzled, the small grudges caused by the previous episode disappeared in their hearts and began to integrate into the big group. I also want to set up a service club to help everyone. Bordered Soil was inspired by this idea, and suddenly asked, "What kind of club did Garashi-senpai set up?" Shunian pointed in a direction and helplessly said, "See for yourself." Obito looked in the direction that Shunian was pointing at and was surprised to find a club surrounded by dozens of girls. The club clearly wrote, Psychology Club. At this moment, Bordered Soil admitted that he was jealous. Why are there so many girls there? Do all girls like this kind of boring club? No, they don't like it. Then why are they still crowded there? Shunian patted him on the shoulder and said in a heavy tone, "Because Garashi is handsome." What? Hearing this answer, Bordered Soil almost doubted his life. Is this even possible? After rushing over and jumping up to take a look, Bordered Soil had to admit that the other party does seem to be a little more handsome than him. If the white-haired Kakashi is the cold moonlight, then Garashi-senpai is the warm sunshine. Bah, why would I want to see the two of them? Fortunately Rin is not so shallow. Bordered Soil thought with relief, and then a form was stuffed into his hand. Bordered Soil looked up and saw Rin standing in front of him with a red face. Bordered Soil, let's join the Psychology Club and support Garashi-senpai. At this moment, Bordered Soil seemed to hear the sound of something breaking. On the other side, Shunian was struggling to squeeze into the crowd. "Excuse me, please let me through." "Can I go in?" "I want to go in." "Get out of my way. I am the supervillain Uchiha Shunian." Shunian's voice gradually became irritable, but it was useless in front of the group of fanatical girls. Not only did she fail to squeeze in, but she was also thrown out. Am I really a campus bully? Shunian was at a loss and suddenly thought, if I accidentally won last year, would it be gone by now? Thinking of this, Shunian instinctively trembled, and as if she made some kind of determination, she cleared her throat and shouted, "Garashi's house key seems to fall on the ground." Where is it?" The crowd dispersed in an instant. Taking advantage of the time when these little girls were searching in all directions, Shunian quickly seized the opportunity to jump in. "Phew, I'm finally here." Opposite him, Shushi smiled. "What's wrong? Are you going to come looking for me to regain the Uchiha's lost honor?" Shunyan's to me twos is? In the battle 3 months ago, didn't you tell me that we, the Uchiha, are the clan that understands love the most? But this kind of love is easy to be extreme. Just like before, I didn't understand anything, but I was paranoid that everything I did was for the honor of the Uchiha. That's why I said to strengthen the ideological construction. Garashi secretly sighed. In his view, this is not unique to the Uchiha clan, but the common problem of the entire ninja class. In a world where 11 or 12 years old can go to the battlefield, the growth of the mind is naturally abnormal. What's even more terrible is that the so-called thinkers of this world like to think alone, without communicating with others, and then they feel that they have mastered the truth of the world. You know, even in Garashi's previous life, the birth of every idea must undergo countless collisions and carvings of inspiration. No one is omniscient and omnipotent, and no one is always right. The narrowness of vision inevitably leads to the limitation of thinking. After seeing the withering of flowers and plants, they think that they have mastered the mystery of heaven and earth. This is naturally very ridiculous. However, when these people have great power in their hands, the ridiculous becomes terrible. Therefore, the people in power put forward such a set of rhetoric, that ninjas are just tools and tools should not have their own thoughts. But it is precisely because of this that in turn, the exchange of ideas is limited. Seeing that Garashi was lost in thought and seemed to agree with his opinion, Shunyan's tone became more and more excited. But there are too many people in the Uchiha clan who are as extreme as I used to be. I can't change them, I can only slowly influence them through the promotion of my status. So, I have to become stronger. Shunian understood this very well. He can be enlightened by Garashi. Isn't it also based on the foundation that Garashi defeated him? If he won at that time, who would listen to the preaching of a loser? Since you have such a request, then okay. Garashi naturally won't refuse the other party's request to be beaten. after beating someone he can also receive the other party's gratitude, it is indeed a pleasant thing. However, it is better to set the time after today's school festival. Why? Can't I do it now? But now you may have to deal with the classmates behind you. Shunyan's body stiffened and slowly turned around. Behind him was a large group of fierce-looking girls, rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms while looking at him. Wait, I'm a school bully. Give me face, don't hit my face. Then for a long time the screams echoed in the forest. Few finally finished distributing the flyers. Asma sat next to Garashi and complained, such a boring club, why are there so many people participating? Garashi smiled helplessly, isn't it too rude to say that the club is boring in front of me, the founder? Haha, what is our relationship? Asma laughed twice and put his arm around Garashi's shoulder. Speaking of which, I thought you would set up a medical club. Actually, from the beginning I also planned to do so. Garashi said inside, but Shuemu's inferiority complex and Shunyan's extremism made me change my mind. If there is a place for them to talk, perhaps many things will be different. Seeing Garashi's mood was somewhat low, Asma suddenly clapped his hands and changed the topic. By the way, Garashi, I heard that a lot of Yunan caravans came to the village. I haven't seen people from other villages. After the school festival is over, should we go and take a look? Maybe there will be a special product of the Thunder Country. Yunan? Garashi's eyes slightly fluctuated, and then immediately joked. The special product of the Thunder Country seems to be a bar? If Naruto-sama knew about it, his blood pressure would probably rise again. Is he allowed to peek at women bathing? I'm not allowed to. Ahem. Chapter 38. In the evening, the novelty brought by the school festival has gradually dissipated, but everyone still lingered in the grove, unwilling to leave. Hee, although I have forgiven Uchiha Shunyan now, but that doesn't prevent me from watching him get beaten up. Let's bet. Let's guess how long Uchiha Shunyan can last in Garashi's hands this time. I bet 5 shurikens that he can last for 5 minutes. I bet 1 explosive tag that he can last for 3 minutes. On the side, Bordered Soil said angrily, damn it, how can these bastards do this? Shunyan himself didn't care. I'm not Garashi's opponent anyway. After saying that, Shunyan suddenly reacted, wait, you didn't also bet, did you? Hearing this, Bordered Soil nodded shyly. Shunyan patted Bordered Soil's shoulder, good brother, but don't do this next time. At this time Metke came over with an angry face, I bet my youth hot-blooded club's quota, but they didn't accept it. Bordered Soil squinted his eyes, your quota, no one wants it. By the way, Bordered Soil, I just saw you bet that Sunyan-san can only last for 1 minute, isn't it too risky? What's wrong with your eyes? Why are you blinking so fast? Are you also going to awaken your Sharingan? Why should I know this idiot? Bordered Soil's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Inexplicably felt that the pressure on his shoulders seemed to have suddenly become a lot heavier. He stiffly turned his head and just happened to meet his cousin's kind eyes. It's over. Why do I feel that this guy has a bit of an aura of victory? Garashi didn't know what kind of tragedy happened just now, seeing Shunyan's heavy footsteps. For a moment he muttered in his heart. Garashi, this time I will definitely last for 5. Shunyan's ruthless words were halfway through, but then he thought about it, if he can't take back the words he said, wouldn't it be more embarrassing? Thinking of this, his momentum instantly weakened. 5.5 minutes. Really? I'm looking forward to it. After forming this seal of opposition, Xiongyan immediately jumped back. At the same time, his hands quickly formed a seal. Fire release, grand fireball. Garashi's expression did not change as he punched out, directly dissipating the blazing fireball. Sparks flew everywhere and Xiongyan also seized the opportunity to hide in the forest. Compared to the battles in the school, the forest had all sorts of trees and shrubs as cover. When facing a straightforward physical technique, the geographical advantage naturally had to be taken advantage of. Garashi was not surprised. He just stood quietly in the middle of the forest. Suddenly, a few sparks appeared and shot directly behind Garashi. At the same time, Xiongyan also took the initiative to jump out and follow behind the sparks. It seemed that she wanted to cooperate with these sparks to launch a round of joint attacks. Garashi noticed the movement and turned around, but this time he did not break it with a punch like before. Instead, he grabbed a few shurikens from the tool bag and shot them at the sparks. The surrounding people had no time to wonder why Garashi would do such a stupid thing as using shurikens to shoot down the flames. They heard a few ding-ding sounds, and the shurikens hidden in the sparks were shot to the ground. The flames that were originally attached to the shurikens also dissipated. How is this possible? How did you see through it? Xiongyan shouted in disbelief. This was a tactic he had thought for a long time to come up with. The sound of a simple flame and a flame with a shuriken hidden in it are different. Shushi's voice was calm as if nothing could make him panic. That works. Xiongyan's head was full of question marks, and then he suddenly realized, wait, I've already lost the initiative. If I continue to rush forward, I'll have to fight Garashi one-on-one in physical technique? Thinking of this, Xiongyan slammed on the brakes, threw a shuriken at Garashi, and hurriedly fled to the side of the jungle. Phew, temporarily safe. Hearing the ding-ding sounds behind him, Xiongyan, who was hiding behind a big tree, rejoiced. Then, accompanied by an explosion, a white arm came from the big tree behind him and stopped right next to his ear. Gulp. Looking sideways, Xiongyan swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. Then, with a creak sound, the big tree collapsed with a loud bang. For the freshmen who had just entered the school, the fierce battle in front of them naturally caused them to cry out in alarm. Too powerful, Garashi, senpai is really too powerful. Rather than saying he's powerful, it's better to say he's ferocious. His body is obviously about the same size as us, but it actually contains such a terrible power. Bordered Soil, who had two panda eyes, was also shocked. So strong. Cousin Xiongyan is not his opponent at all. Kakashi's small face was dignified. His eyesight, hearing, and control of power are all unexpectedly strong. Could it be that the person father mentioned who is more powerful than me is him? In the field, Xiongyan was constantly fleeing in the forest, accompanied by a roar, and from time to time, a big tree was broken in half. In just a few dozen seconds, Xiongyan was already surrounded by danger. Regarding this, Xiongyan was also very desperate. His biggest confidence this time was the previous sword in the fire. He wanted to use Garashi's inertial thinking to catch him off guard. But who knew Garashi did not play by the rules at all. Calm down, there's still a chance. Xiongyan took a deep breath. While fleeing, he observed the surrounding terrain, looking for an opportunity. Can these accumulated trees be used? If I can ignite them all at once. Wait, what is that? While Xiongyan was thinking calmly, the corner of his eyes suddenly saw the transparent thin line connecting the forest. Or rather, it was a net. This is a net connected by chakra lines? It seems that you have already discovered it, then this battle will stop here. As soon as the voice fell, Xiongyan was tied in the air. Although the posture of being tied seemed a bit shameful, Xiongyan didn't care so much. Looking at Garashi below, he asked incredulously, "You can still control chakra lines while fighting with me?" Garashi smiled and put down Xiongyan. "Maybe because using taijutsu doesn't take much of my energy." Xiongyan reluctantly accepted this answer. Yes, taijutsu is just waving your fist as long as you have hands. At the same time, the little gamblers began to cry. Too fast, only 50 seconds and he lost. It shouldn't be. Uchiha Xiongyan lasted 2 minutes last time. Xiongyan's small face was red. He didn't want to, but fighting with Garashi is a bad thing. Any mistake will be infinitely magnified. Haha, Rin was right, cousin Xiongyan really can. Xiongyan was embarrassed hearing the cheers. His face instantly became ferocious. On the other side, Asma came up. Garashi, get ready to go. Garashi responded, but after a few steps he was stopped by a white-haired kid. Chapter 39. Asma looked unhappy. Newcomer, what do you want? However, Kakashi completely ignored his existence and just looked at Garashi. Let me introduce myself, my name is Hataki Kakashi. Garashi smiled gently. My name is Shimizu Garashi, nice to meet you. Kakashi nodded. Okay, let's start now. Everyone around looked puzzled. Did they cross over? Why did it feel like there was a conversation missing in the middle? Even Garashi was stunned for a moment and immediately chuckled. It turned out that he didn't know how to communicate at all. Of course, some geniuses have their own pride. Asma on the side also understood and asked with a cold face, "You mean you want to teach Garashi?" Kakashi looked puzzled. Didn't he say he wanted to teach me? Asma was startled. For a moment he couldn't tell whether this guy was arrogant or really stupid. Garashi smiled helplessly. I'm happy to accept your advice, but I have an appointment with a friend today, so let's wait for the next time. Is that so? I see. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully and said with a little arrogance, I will try to end the battle within a minute. Asma's eyes were full of sympathy. This child is really stupid. As for the reaction of the surrounding people, hey, I didn't expect this white-haired brat to be so self-aware. No, This guy saw Uchiha Shiniki's performance and still thinks he can hold on for a minute. He's obviously arrogant. Oh, so that's the case. Hey, are all newcomers this year so arrogant? Kakashi was depressed. He's not the kind of person who likes to show off. The reason why he challenged Uchiha Shiniki this time, in addition to his fighting spirit being ignited, was more because he was not convinced by his father's evaluation. But in the mouth of these bastards, how could he lose the battle within a minute? What's even more abominable is that he lost the battle within a minute. Is he being arrogant? Perhaps this is what Jiraiya-sama mentioned in Legend of the Counterattack. The contempt of the people around him will become the source of growth for the protagonist. Kakashi recalled the scene in the book where the person at the end of the line made a comeback, and his originally cold heart became restless. Since you asked so, then I have to agree. Garashi chuckled, not caring about the other party's rudeness. Seeing this situation, the little gambler dogs became excited again. Awu open, bordered soil came to Rin's side. Rin, what do you think I should bet this time? Before Rin had time to speak, Shiniki Shiniki, Shu Shiniki, Shiniki Shiniki, Shiniki Shiniki, Shiniki Shiniki Shiniki. What? What do you mean? Bordered soil asked in confusion. Shunyan sighed and looked at Garashi with eyes full of sympathy. Let's put it this way. Physical arts is actually Garashi's weakest area. Bordered soil was startled. He pointed at the horrible scene in the forest and exclaimed, "You call this the weakest?" In the forest, Garashi gently brushed the fallen leaves off his shoulders. Kakashi, are you ready? Kakashi assumed an offensive posture. Come on. The moment his voice fell, the fallen leaves in the air began to dance, fluttering about, attracting Kakashi's attention. Garashi slowly walked over and brushed past Kakashi. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. As an apology, let me give you a spring in return. After saying that, Shushi walked outside, while Kakashi stood there motionless as if he was in a trance. Seeing this, bordered soil woke up from his stupor and asked, What's going on? Is Kakashi asleep? It's an illusion. Shunyan's voice was full of admiration and admiration. This is Garashi's true strength. Too powerful. Bordered soil was absent-minded for a moment, but immediately became inexplicably excited. Lin is too good. She must have deliberately pulled me into the psychology club to attract the attention of the senior, and then she can ask him for advice on illusions. Just as bordered soil was once again immersed in his beautiful fantasy, there was suddenly a burst of cheers around him. Wow! Garashi-kun is too elegant, too gentle. Too much, can't that newcomer last a little longer? That's right, I wanted to enjoy Garashi-kun's battle for a while longer. It's so painful, I seem to have a headache when I can't see Garashi. Oh, I seem to be sick too. No, I have to go to the psychology club tomorrow to see the senior. Damn it, I was the one who got sick first. Hearing these voices of admiration, bordered soil's small face was bitter. It seems to be a bit difficult to attract the attention of the senior. Woodleaf Bazaar. This is the Thunder Tooth Iron from the Cloud Plateau of the Land of Lightning. It has been baptized by thunder and lightning all year round. It has a very good thunder property chakra conductivity. Usually it would cost at least 100,000 taels to buy, but now we have a big discount. The top of the Land of Lightning is awesome, really awesome. This is our Yunnan special wine, 4-bucket goblet. Raikage-sama said it was good after drinking it. Raikage said it was good after drinking it? Asuma stood in front of a stall, his eyes eager to try. He stretched his neck and sniffed inside. Go away, little brats, don't come here and make trouble. The stall owner obviously didn't think that two children would have any ability to buy, so he waved his hand in disgust. Even if you give it to me, I don't want it. Asuma's tsundere mentality flared up. He pretended to turn his head and walked away. Garashi followed behind him. His eyes from time to time swept over the surrounding crowd. Hey, so boring. Asuma's interest didn't last long and soon he lost interest. By the way, Garashi, I see you have been looking around since just now. Do you want to buy something? It's okay, it's my treat. For Asuma's rich behavior, Garashi just gently shook his head. What I am interested in is not their goods, but their eyes. Asuma's body trembled. He lowered his voice and asked, Garashi, you want to dig out their eyes? Garashi couldn't help but laugh. I don't think so. Then you just said, what I mean is the information that their eyes convey. Asuma suddenly turned around and stared at an adult's eyes for a long time until the other party noticed. Then he excitedly turned back and said, I saw it, there's eye wax. He must have gotten up in the morning and didn't wash his face. Garashi was a little dumbfounded. Well, this is indeed a message from the eyes, but what I really care about is the true emotions that their eyes can convey. Without waiting for Asma to speak, Garashi continued, when I was still in the hospital, I found that many adults like to wear masks on their faces. Asma wondered, masks is there? The disguise to hide one's true thoughts is a mask. I understand, just like the old man obviously likes to watch women bathe, but he refuses to go directly to the bathhouse. He hides at home to peep. Ahem. Chapter 40. In order to prevent Asma from saying any more shocking words, Garashi quickly continued the previous topic. However, only the eyes will not be covered by the mask. Asma nodded thoughtfully, then stared straight at Garashi. Garashi, guess what I'm thinking now? Garashi looked back calmly, which made Asma feel weak. You didn't think of anything before, but now, you should be warning yourself not to think of anything. Asuma's eyes widened. That's amazing. Could this be mind reading? Garashi shook his head gently. It's not that magical, I'm just too familiar with your personality. If it's a stranger, even if I use the other person's eyes, expressions, and body movements, I can only analyze some details at most. That's still very amazing. Asma rubbed his hands and said flatteringly, Garashi, can you teach me this? Of course, after all, I was going to mention it in the Psychology Society. Huh. I thought your Psychology Society only needed to listen. Since it's a Psychology Society, I have to understand everyone's true thoughts first. Garashi smiled slightly. He did not mind letting psychology take root in this world. On one hand, the characteristics of psychology itself were destined to be predestined. There were many people who were interested, but there were very few who were willing to go deeper. On the other hand, what he was going to talk about was mainly micro-expression analysis, and this was not only useless for people who could control their micro-expressions well, but it could also deliberately let others interpret the true thoughts that they wanted to convey. After listening to Garashi's explanation, Asma felt that he was ready to graduate. Psychological analysis was not something that could be done with eyes. Who should I practice with? Asma muttered to himself, then his eyes lit up, and he swaggered in a certain direction. You little rascal, why are you here again? Seeing Asuma standing in front of the booth with his head held high, the vendor who was selling wine before felt depressed. Asma crossed his arms and decided to use the method that Garashi had taught him. You're selling fake wine. The stall owner was shocked at first, then he said angrily, You little brat, are you looking for a beating? He didn't look elsewhere, which meant that he wasn't guilty. Oh no, I failed the first time. Although Asma was depressed, he did not care about the other party's attitude. He was a second-generation actor. What was wrong with being arrogant and despotic? Seeing that the other party was about to lose his temper, Garashi stepped forward. Even though the wine isn't fake, it should have been mixed many times, right? The boss said confidently, You kids don't understand. Wine is supposed to be blended. But the taste of the wine is so light, are you sure it's not? Even Rakage said it's bad? The stall owner's expression froze. If he really has a problem, his psychological quality is definitely not comparable to the previous one. Then what should we do? Of course, let them show their flaws. So, this time we need Asma to act as yourself. After a moment of discussion, accompanied by an extremely arrogant voice, the two actors officially appeared. Boss. Here. The boss ran out happily. When he saw the two little ones standing at the door, he was stunned but quickly recovered. Little ones, what are you doing here? Well, this boss's strength is indeed very strong. Asma, who had already identified the other party as a bad guy, secretly evaluated the other party's acting skills. Of course we are here to buy things. Don't tell me we are here to watch you take a bath? Ahem. The boss looked puzzled but still said in a gentle tone, Little one, my things here are very expensive, you should go somewhere else to play. Asma didn't speak, just raised his head and looked at him with his nose. At this time, Garashi stood up. Now standing in front of you is the son of Naruto, the raider, the future successor of the Sarutobi clan, and a strong candidate for the second grade class leader of the ninja school. Hearing these bitter words, even Garashi, who was watching from the side, was almost moved. Another round of torment. Seeing that Moonlight had climbed onto the chopping board, Heiai cried silently in his heart. Finally, seeing Heiai wrap up the fatty meat and send it over, Asma looked at the other party's numb eyes and almost couldn't bear to continue. Then by the way, give me 5 kilograms of bones. I just remembered that Inuzuka's dog likes to eat bones the most. Oh. Heiai responded mechanically, like a salted fish that had lost its dream. However, the moment he lowered his head to scrape the bones, the murderous intent in his eyes skyrocketed, and the hand holding the machete also burst out with blue veins. Have I already been exposed? No, if I've really been exposed, it won't be just two little brats. I have to endure it. At least I can't be the one to expose myself. Endure. What followed was another long period of silence. Finally, the bones were picked. Two little guests, do you have any other requests? Heiai bent down, looking very flattering, but in fact, like a tiger staring at its prey, he was ready to attack. But at this moment, Asuma's soft muttering sounded in front of him. You don't even get angry, what a bummer. Didn't you say that Yunnan people have the most fiery temper? Heiai was stunned, he felt something was different. Before he could think of anything, Asuma continued. The second Naruto died in the hands of Yunnan. This hatred, I must avenge it. Oh, so it's because of this. Heiai only felt that his palms were wet with sweat. Hearing this, he hurriedly explained, our Yunnan was also a victim of the coup, even the second Raikage was killed by the two brothers. But both of them are still Yunnan people. With that, Asuma walked out with an unhappy face. You're lucky this time, I will come again next time. He didn't have enough cash, so he quickly left. Although Asuma didn't pay and didn't take away the beef, Heiai didn't dare to make any more trouble. Phew, it's finally over. Heiai rubbed his wrist, looking at the table full of beef, his mouth twitched. I hate little devils the most, especially Woodleaf's little devils. After walking out of the shop for some distance, Asuma whispered excitedly. There is definitely something wrong with that guy. Garashi nodded. And it's a big problem. Then we'll leave it to the adults. Asuma's excited look froze, and then he immediately smiled. This kind of uncertain thing, it's better not to bother others, right? Garashi showed a hint of surprise. You want to follow them alone? Nope, I still have you. No, it's too dangerous. It won't be dangerous. Asuma was serious for once. Our Woodleaf is protected by a barrier. If there is a powerful ninja from the outside world, the old man will receive the news immediately, so at most, only the escort ninjas of the caravan will participate in the operation. That's also very dangerous, after all, we are not even ninjas. Ninjas and ninjas can't be lumped together. Asuma said disdainfully. It's too easy for geniuses like us to deal with ordinary ninjas, and Yunnan certainly won't be willing to let geniuses from their village participate in such a dangerous task. What if they have a Chunin? If it's a Chunin, even if we can't beat them, we should be able to protect ourselves. Moreover, this is Woodleaf, if they find out that they can't catch us in the first place, they will definitely give up. Seeing that Garashi was still hesitating, Asuma said again. If they do it tonight, then it's too late for us to inform them now. Hearing this, Garashi nodded with a dignified face. Okay, but if they don't act tonight, then we must inform the village tomorrow. Seeing that Garashi was convinced by himself, Asuma excitedly waved his fist. Great, the anti-spy team is ready to act. Garashi sighed softly as if he was sorry for his nonsense, but his eyes flashed with a strange light. After all, this time we are going to contact sensitive people, so I can only trouble you, Asuma, to take the blame for me. P.S. Some readers may think that the name is too strange, but Samui in Yunnan is the Japanese pronunciation. Omoi is the Japanese pronunciation. I'll just pick a fast Japanese pronunciation. Chapter 42. Under the hazy night sky, a few sneaky figures gathered together. Heiai, what's going on over there? Why are there people at your place so late at night? That's right, we have to change our contact location. Hearing the complaints of his companions, Heiai's nose was sour, and he almost burst into tears. After being tortured by the two brats for a long time, he almost changed from a ninja to a chef. After the two brats left, he found the secret signal left by his companions at the back door of the shop and rushed to the new contact location without stopping. He didn't even have time to eat. Was it easy for him? Trying to calm down, Heiai explained. Sorry, I didn't expect to be pestered by two troublesome brats. Entangled? The other few people were shocked and hurriedly asked, You've been discovered? How is that possible? Heiai waved his hand. If I was exposed, a lot of Woodleaf Umbu should have jumped out and caught us. What are you doing? Don't talk nonsense. One of them released his right hand from Heiai's mouth and glared at him. I used to have a companion, and every time he said something similar, it would come true. Heiai's mouth twitched and he whispered. How is this possible? I can't bear to say it. That's enough. The leader stopped and then asked. What the hell is going on? There are two brats from Woodleaf Umbu who want to deliberately provoke me, so that they will attract the patrol ninjas. Seeing the other people's faces changed, Hayai quickly explained. Don't get me wrong, those two brats don't know my identity. They just want to provoke conflict and avenge Nidame Naruto. Hearing this, the others also laughed. I didn't expect that the higher-ups of Woodleaf Umbu are all cowards. Among those brats there are a few hardliners. Hayai also laughed. Haha, one of them claimed to be the son of Sandame Naruto. Huh? Why aren't you laughing? Seeing the smiles on the other people's faces suddenly disappear, Hayai was puzzled at first, but he soon woke up and regretted it. I understand now. I should have caught the kid directly. Anyway, the kid's value is obviously higher than the target. Idiot. The leader lowered his voice and scolded, haven't you heard that Sandame Naruto likes to peep with binoculars? Hayai's eyes widened. Peeping? The ninja next to him replied, Baiwei-sama said that Sandame Naruto of Woodleaf is a very controlling person, so he specially developed this technique for monitoring. Hayai was shocked. Then what should we do? Fortunately, you idiot didn't make a move. Otherwise we would all be finished. The leader of the ninjas suppressed his anger and asked, hurry up and recall for me. Did you reveal any flaws before? I don't think so. The more Hayai thought about it, the less confident he felt. Don't think so? At this time, the ninja next to him asked, wait, the son of Naruto didn't even make it for dinner. Wouldn't Sandame Naruto send someone to find him? The leader of the ninjas pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, you mentioned that there were two Woodleaf kids. Who is the other one? Hayai thought about it. The kid had no sense of existence except for his good looks. I don't know except for his good looks. However, the leader of the ninjas was overjoyed. I know that kid must be Shimizu Garashi that I inquired about in the past few days. I heard that Sandame Naruto is very optimistic about him. Maybe Sandame Naruto found them together with the binoculars, so he was relieved and didn't look at them. Is that so? Hayai was at a loss. Obviously he was a kid with nothing except for his good looks. Has Woodleaf now fallen to choosing people based on their good looks? Captain, what should we do now? The leader of the ninjas pondered for a moment and exhaled heavily. In any case, our risk of exposure has greatly increased, so we must take action tonight. Because of fear of being discovered, Garashi and Hayai followed from a very far distance. The disadvantage is that there is no way to monitor the other party's conversation. Why haven't they taken action yet? Don't tell me he's asleep? Asuma yawned and whispered, Shushi, why don't we get a little closer? Garashi shook his head slightly. The strength of these ninjas may not be stronger than us, but their experience in carrying out missions is definitely above us. If we get closer, the risk of being discovered is too great. Okay. Asuma sighed helplessly and then clenched his fist. When we catch these bastards, I must let them know the consequences of making me unable to sleep. They are coming out. What is coming out? They are finally going to take action. Garashi nodded and whispered, get ready to follow. They are far away from the enemy. Although it is safe, they may lose the target if they are not careful. Therefore, the two did not dare to have the slightest neglect. Seeing the enemy move, they quickly followed. After tracking for a while, Asuma exclaimed softly, hey, that direction. Garashi pretended not to know and asked, is there a problem? There are no people in that direction, only a very fierce big sister lives there. Asuma said and asked, Garashi, do you know the country of whirlpools? Garashi jumped and followed while nodding and replied. The country of whirlpools was originally a friendly ally of Woodleaf, but it was destroyed because of a war a few years ago. Well, this big sister is a survivor of the country of whirlpools. Asuma said the truth he knew. In order to protect the orphans of the country of whirlpools, the old man let the big sister settle down in the village. But because of outsiders, she doesn't seem to have a good relationship with the other people in the village. But why do these Yunin ninjas want to catch her? Hearing that, Shushi couldn't help but laugh in his heart. According to the memory of his previous life, the fact that Uzumaki Shina Kushina became the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki was only known by Sandame and a few elders. Other than that, even the Sannin didn't know. This also led to a very awkward situation. If they send someone to monitor, the spies of other villages will definitely find something wrong. But if they don't send someone to monitor, it is impossible for them to keep an eye on a little girl all the time. In the end, they can only choose to believe in Woodleaf security guards. On the other side, Yunin didn't want to catch the Kyuubi at all. Otherwise they wouldn't have sent these rotten fish. They were really only interested in the other side's special chakra. but who knew that they would catch such a big fish? P.S. According to the setting of the Book of Matrix, this incident happened 27 years before the end of the Fourth World War. According to the timeline problem I mentioned at the beginning, it happened in the year 41 of Woodleaf. So, my outline originally set the incident at the end of the previous year, but I was hot-headed a few days ago, and inexplicably wrote it to the second year. Now, I can only set it to the period between the end of the year 41 and the beginning of the year 42. Here I am brainless, and the outline is set to make mistakes so everyone can scold me, XXXXXX. There is also a point that people often think that this plot happened when Minato was in school because the previous part of the plot happened when he was in school. But in fact, when Minato saved the beauty, both of them were wearing Woodleaf forehead protectors and had already graduated. Chapter 43. While talking, the group of Yunin ninjas rushed into Uzumaki Shina Kushina's house. Garashi looked dignified. Damn it, we can't catch up. Ah, don't worry. Asuma gloated. Those Yunin ninjas are in trouble. I heard from the old man that the big sister's strength is super. Before he finished his words, several ninjas in black walked out with a red-haired girl. Asuma. Seeing the strange look in Shushi's eyes, Asuma quickly explained, I understand now. This must be the red-haired big sister's deliberate disguise. She wants to follow this clue and catch all the spies. Garashi slightly shook his head. If he guessed correctly, Uzumaki Shina Kushina's strength should be suppressed by Kyuubi. After all, Uzumaki Mito was too old when the seal was transferred, and although Sandame-sama and the others are strong, their attainments in Fuinjutsu are not as good as Uzumaki clan. The most important thing is that the seal in Uzumaki Shina Kushina's body is the complete Kyuubi, which makes the strength of the seal in Uzumaki Shina Kushina's body not even comparable to the strength of the future Naruto. In order to prevent Kyuubi from breaking the seal, Uzumaki Shina Kushina didn't dare to use chakra, so she didn't dare to resist when she was caught by these ninjas. It can be said that these Yunin ninjas are on the verge of death without knowing it. So, in this world, good people are easy to be bullied. Garashi sighed, and Asuma on the side also felt that something was wrong. The big sister fell several times along the way, and was violently dragged on the ground by the Yunin. Even if they want to act, they don't have to work so hard, right? Not good, Garashi, that big sister may have been caught. Let's go save her now. Wait, don't be impulsive. Don't forget they have a hostage now. Thinking of this, Asuma suddenly panicked. Then what should we do? Damn it, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have tested them. I would have just captured them. Even if I had captured the wrong person, they would at most have scolded me. Don't blame yourself too much. After all, it involves two countries. Without evidence, the higher-ups won't directly arrest people. But it's too late to go back now. Garashi said calmly, don't worry, there's still a way. Hearing Garashi's words, Asuma calmed down. Tell me, Garashi, what should we do? Garashi narrowed his eyes. Let's continue to follow them. When they reach the border of Woodleaf, they're only one step away from success. That should be when they're the most relaxed. Then we'll cooperate with them and take back the hostages. Asuma couldn't help but retort, but what if they don't relax? Garashi said helplessly, in that case I can only try to use genjutsu to attack their minds. Although I'm very confident in my genjutsu, the enemy is a ninja after all. I'm not sure if it will work. Be sure to succeed. With that, Asuma said depressingly, I haven't gone back yet. Can't the old man hurry up and peep at me? Damn it, he must want to take advantage of my absence to peep at others. Unlike the worried Asuma, Garashi didn't even have the slightest fluctuation in his eyes from beginning to end. Everything was within his expectations. Even the other protagonist in this good show who hasn't appeared yet was the same. Things like favorability, it's the same for two people, so don't let me down, Namikaze Minato-senpai. Compared to Namikaze Minato, in fact, Garashi valued Uzumaki Shina Kushina more. However, Namikaze Minato also had the potential to develop into an excellent tool. Therefore, Shushi naturally did not want to miss out on such an opportunity to farm two items at once. If Namikaze Minato makes a move, I don't have to spend much effort, I just have to find the right time to gain experience. But what if he doesn't arrive in time as expected? Garashi didn't think that the river of fate would be like a pool of stagnant water without the slightest ripple. Too much belief in the future he knew would only put himself in a passive and unfavorable situation. Therefore, even if he was involved in this known future, he was still fully prepared. Before deliberately guiding Asuma, he had already figured out the other party's intentions and strength in advance. After all, I never said that an ordinary chunin is beyond my scope of dealing with. As a genius, isn't it reasonable to have a breakthrough in the battle? Under the cover of the night, the two followed closely behind Yunin Ninja. Asma picked up a handful of soft red hair from the ground with a complicated expression. Garashi, are these people really ninjas? The big sister lost her hair all the way, and it was a dazzling red hair that was as eye-catching as fire in the dark, but the group of ninjas didn't even notice it. At first he was worried that this was Yunin Ninja deliberately luring them to appear, but now it seems that this group of ninjas seems to be really weak. Shushi, on the other hand, remained silent. He finally understood why Cloud Village was so fond of stirring up trouble, but every time they did so, their harvest was so small, they were addicted to food. After discovering this, Asma asked eagerly, Garashi, should we get closer? Garashi was about to answer, but the chakra wave from the distance made him lose his mind for a moment. It was the chakra that he attached to Uzumaki Shina Kushina's hair. Although he is not a specialized perceptive ninja, in this case if someone picks up the hair on the ground he can still perceive the chakra wave. Namikaze Minato? It seems that I have to hurry up and act. Otherwise, when he arrives, I will have nothing to do here. Thinking of this, Garashi no longer hesitated. Of course, we have to get closer and take the opportunity to launch a surprise attack. Asma's eyes widened. But didn't you say before that we have to wait for them to get close to the border of Woodleaf Village? I overlooked an important detail before. These Cloud Ninjas are likely to have arranged people outside the barrier in advance. If a battle breaks out at the border, it may be noticed by the Cloud Ninjas outside the barrier. Once they desperately rush into the barrier, it will be too late even if the village elders receive the news. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha. So, we'd better choose a place where they are relatively close to the border, but the battle won't be noticed by the people outside the barrier. I understand. Asma suddenly nodded and praised. Garashi, you are so thoughtful. Well, wait for me to make the hand seals, and once I'm done, you immediately grab the big sister. Understood. Chapter 44. As time passed, the border gradually appeared, and the Yunin ninjas who had been on tenterhooks finally breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, it was really dangerous tonight. Yeah. But fortunately it was a close call. When we get back to the village, I'll get drunk for a whole day and night. Seeing this, Hayai also tried to justify himself. I told you that it was impossible to be exposed. Look, there's no one chasing after us now, right? The ninja who covered his mouth said angrily, I told you not to say such things. But before he could finish his words, his eyes lost their light. Before Shina Kushina, who was still in a daze, could react, she was grabbed by Asma and thrown out. Garashi took advantage of this gap and threw his shuriken, cutting the rope that tied Shina Kushina's hands with great precision. Someone really came to save me. Shina Kushina fell to the ground, and the sudden pain woke her up. Although she had been trying to save herself before, in fact, she did not think that anyone would come to save her because of the estrangement in her heart. But she did not expect that her fantasy would become reality. She raised her head and saw two little boys. 2 children saved me? At this time, Yunin ninjas also woke up one after another. I was hit by an illusion. After noticing what happened around them, the leader of the ninjas felt a chill in his heart. Fortunately, they saved her first. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I died this time. Is it really that effective? Hayai, who woke up, was at a loss. After seeing the 2 people who attacked him, he shouted in disbelief, It's you 2 brats. Hearing his shout, the others quickly calmed down and looked around, and then they were ecstatic. Are there only these 2 brats? Where's Woodleaf Sambu? Shina Kushina also reacted and asked in a shaky voice, Only the 2 of you? But soon she mocked herself. Well, only kids like you wouldn't mind a disgusting outsider like me. How can a kind person be hated? Garashi, who was giving Shina Kushina temporary treatment, said softly. God. Shina Kushina was stunned. It was the first time she had heard someone praise her like that. Garashi nodded. When I was treating you, big sister, I discovered that there was a very terrifying power in your body. If it wasn't for suppressing this power, you should have been able to defeat them. In order to prevent the people around him from being threatened, he would rather be hurt. Such a person must be very kind. Shina Kushina sniffled and almost burst into tears. Ever since she was young, she had experienced the destruction of her home, the bullying of her classmates, and the discrimination of others. Even when she was brought to Woodleaf, she was only used as a vessel. This was the first time she had received such recognition. Just at this moment she made up her mind, this brother of mine is mine. Interrupting your thoughts, the pure and clean high fever mushroom is not some old SP? Seeing that Garashi and their mission target were chatting as if there was no one else around, the group of Yunin ninjas only felt that they were seriously insulted. New hatred plus old hatred. Heiai rubbed his wrist and grinned, you two annoying brats, you finally fell into my hands. Shina Kushina woke up and stood in front of Garashi, didn't you want to catch me? I cannot resist, but you have to let them go. Heiai hurriedly said, Captain, that brat is the son of Sandame Naruto. Anyway, we are now at the border, we don't have to worry about Woodleaf's revenge. Hearing what he said, Shina Kushina was also surprised. He is the son of the old man Sarutobi? The leader of the ninja was a bit confused. If they caught the son of Sandame Naruto, wouldn't it directly trigger the Third Shinobi World War? He is just a small chunin, how can he make such a decision that may change the world? After taking a few deep breaths, Yunin ninja finally influenced him, let's do it. Hearing this, the rest of the Yunin ninjas also shouted excitedly, this is the son of Sandame Naruto, his value is much higher than the Uzumaki orphan. Asuma had an innocent look on his face. I didn't even say a word. Why are they looking for me for no reason? However, he wasn't afraid, he was even excited. Humph? It's still too early for you trash ninjas to deal with Master Asuma? Shushi, let's show these bastards our strength. Is he called Garashi? Shina Kushina looked at Garashi with concern, her eyes were full of worry. While they were talking, several cloud ninjas had already rushed up to him. In their opinion, how powerful can these two kids be? They just need to be careful of the previous genjutsu. On the other side, Garashi also tacitly cooperated with each other to take action. Garashi's hands quickly formed hand seals, Asuma threw shurikens like stars in the sky. Why are there so many shurikens? Damn, this kid is too rich. The Yunin ninjas were also depressed, although the opponent's throwing technique is very immature, but the strength is not low, with their strength they can't ignore it. Ding ding, in a series of metal collision sound, the shurikens quickly fell to the ground, but this is enough. Genjutsu, Fox's mind jutsu. Well, where is he? The leader of the ninjas suddenly realized that a cliff appeared in front of him, and he was so scared that he stopped immediately. But at this moment, the instincts of many years of ninja training made him alert. Genjutsu dispel. After forcefully disrupting the flow of chakra in his body, the leader of the ninjas finally woke up. Then he felt a hot wind blowing in his face. The leader of the ninjas took a closer look and saw a huge fireball burning towards him. *CK. The leader of the ninjas didn't have time to curse and quickly rolled to the side. After spitting out a mouthful of grass seeds, the leader of the ninjas looked at the scorched marks on the ground in a daze. Isn't the Grand Fireball Jutsu a Chunin level ninjutsu? How can a 6 or 7-year-old kid use it so skillfully? Is there any justice in this world? No, there is also the level C Genjutsu, Fox's Mind Jutsu. The leader of the ninjas looked at his companions who were running around like headless flies, and cursed again in his heart, the other kid is a monster among monsters, he even used a group Genjutsu. If Woodleaf is such a monster, how did Yunin survive for so many years before losing the war? Even Shina Kushina was secretly shocked. The brother that she unilaterally recognized was a little too strong. At least, when she was Garashi's age, she definitely didn't have such strength. P.S. Why don't you kill the enemies first? The first reason is that unless you kill all the enemies in an instant, the hostage will still be in danger. The second reason is that Garashi is here to increase his favorability, and the first thing is to let the other party feel that Garashi values her. Chapter 45. This guy actually woke up at the last moment. Asuma smacked his lips with a look of regret. Then let's get rid of the others first. Garashi took out a shuriken from his tool bag. I'll take care of the left side. Then I'll take care of the right side. The leader's eyebrows twitched and he shouted, wake up. If he couldn't disrupt the flow of chakra in his body, his companions could help him. But the problem was he could only save one person at a time. Therefore, he could only hope that his voice could create the effect of restraining. However, it didn't work at all. A vacuum jade flew to the left, and a shuriken shot to the right. The leader gritted his teeth and tried to use his shuriken to knock down the shuriken shot by the opponent, while he ran to the left to knock away his companion before the vacuum jade hit him. Phew, luckily I made it in time. But before he could catch his breath, Garashi and Asuma began a new round of attacks. Damn brats, just you wait. No way again? Are you pigs? Wake up now. After going back and forth 3 times, no matter how slow he was, he realized that something was wrong. Every time he attacked, the opponent seemed to leave a gap just right, staggered the time slightly so that he could still save his companion. No, these 2 brats are doing it on purpose. The leader felt a chill in his heart. These 2 brats deliberately left him a gap so that he would be exhausted and defeated easily because of exhaustion. Shinakushina was also surprised. It's been so long and no one has woken up. Normal fox mind jutsu absolutely can't have this effect. My brother seems to be really powerful. Seeing the 2 brats start another round of attack, the leader of the ninja roared and rushed up with bloodshot eyes. Damn brats, I want you to die. Being forced to give up his companion by 2 brats made him feel ashamed and angry at the same time. Oh no, it seems that we pushed him too far. Although Asma said that, there was no fear in his voice. Instead, it was full of excitement. A Chunin-level opponent, I wonder how strong he will be? Asma was looking forward to it, but suddenly the opponent's hands burst out a dazzling purple lightning. Lightning release, wolf pack kill. The lightning turned into a pack of hungry wolves, opening their bloody mouth toward Asma. So fast. Asma was surprised. The speed of the opponent's lightning release seemed to be much faster than what he had seen in the village. As expected of a ninja from Yunnan, Asma quickly made a hand seal and spat out a ball of fire from his mouth toward the wolf pack. Lightning and fire clashed, and a dazzling light suddenly blossomed in the forest at night. In the aftermath of the explosion, the leader of the ninja violently broke through the lightning and fire barrier and rushed toward Asma. Seeing the enemy rushing toward him, Asma's pupils violently shrank. Obviously, he didn't expect the enemy to be so fierce, but thanks to the many battles he had with Garashi, he was no stranger to this kind of violent attack. With a substitution jutsu, he dodged in time. The Yunnan ninja who had entered a berserk state was naturally not satisfied with this result. He kicked the tree in front of him and used the recoil force to rush toward Asma again. I say, haven't you forgotten something? Yamanashi. Garashi's voice appeared at the right time, and he punched the Yunnan ninja who was in mid-air. Boom. Like a cannonball, the Yunnan ninja was fiercely hit and flew out, plowing a long gully in the ground. Sure enough, Garashi is more ferocious. Asma muttered and then asked, this guy won't be killed directly, right? On the side, Shinakushina also nodded with relief. As expected of her one-sided brother, under his kind heart, there was also a violent power like her. Phew, what kind of monsters are these? In the smoke, the Yunnan ninja's horrified voice came out. At this moment, he was looking at the fragments in his chest with a frightened face. If it weren't for the heart protection mirror, he would have been directly blown up this time. No, even with the heart protection mirror as a buffer, he was almost shocked to death by the transmitted power. However, I won't give you another chance. I will let you know that a Chunin like you can't even deal with a genin. But you were almost killed by us. That's because I was careless. But you were almost killed by us. Bastard. The leader of the ninja roared and rushed straight to Asma. However, Asma just quickly formed hand seals with his hands, and he didn't even have the slightest intention to dodge. Seeing this situation, the leader of the ninja subconsciously thought of a certain possibility, but before he could react, the familiar throbbing appeared again. Genjutsu again, break it for me? The leader of the ninja knew that he couldn't delay, and he barely controlled his left hand, and the shuriken hidden in the palm of his hand in advance pierced into his flesh. Intense pain came and he finally broke free from the illusion. Then a turbulent heat wave came. With the experience of the last time, the leader of the ninja hurriedly rolled away, but half of his body was still wrapped in flames. Damn it, I was forced to this extent. The leader of the ninja held his left hand and looked at Garashi with eyes wide open. He really couldn't imagine that as a Chunin he couldn't even deal with 2 kids. If it was just one person it wouldn't be so difficult for him, but the cooperation of the 2 kids was too good, and he couldn't wake up any of his stupid teammates. Garashi's face was expressionless, but in his heart he sighed, as expected of the fire release, it can't even burn people to death. No, if we don't get rid of that kid who used genjutsu, this battle can't continue. Thinking of this, the leader of the ninja gritted his teeth and rushed to Asma again. Asma and Garashi didn't suspect anything, and subconsciously began to form hand seals. 3, 2, 1, it's coming. Yunin's eyes flashed and she actually predicted the time of Garashi's genjutsu in advance, and the moment before she was confused by the illusion, she didn't hesitate to explode the smoke bomb in her hand. Damn it, I can't see the enemy's position. Asma thought to himself, but he had already completed the hand seals, and he could only rely on his luck. The huge fireball moved forward and finally rushed into the smoke. Accompanied by the roar of the explosion, dust and smoke covered half of the battlefield. Just when Asma was carefully guarding against the enemy's movement, suddenly, a black figure rushed out of the smoke, and it was so black that it almost blended in with the night. And his target was Uzumaki Shina Kushina. Bastard, stop. Asma saw this and subconsciously grabbed a shuriken and threw it at the enemy. Damn it, I don't have time to form hand seals. Garashi pretended to panic and shouted, but in his heart he was speechless. The idiot opposite didn't forget to look at him from the corner of his eyes. Was he afraid that he didn't know his intention? Being deceived by such a clumsy performance, it's really insulting to my intelligence, but it can also be explained by being careless because of concern. Thinking of this, Garashi took the initiative to send himself forward. Thinking of this, he quickly walked back to the table. With a wave of his right hand, the image on the crystal ball began to change. The next moment, Shina Kushina appeared in front of him, and at the same time, Yunin ninja who was paralyzed on the ground in fear appeared. Damn it, these Yunin are actually... Sandame said angrily, and then suddenly his eyes widened, because he saw Asma's figure in the corner of the crystal ball. Wait, what the hell is going on? Root in the underground dark room. The ninja wearing the rock Crypsis forehead protector looked at the old man in front of him in horror. What are you doing? No, don't come over. Don't struggle, let this old man give you an injection. What is this? Poison? Oh, isn't this the reason why Inoki asked you to sneak into Woodleaf? Listening to what he said, even if he was imprisoned, the rock Crypsis spy couldn't help but show a look of desire. This is the first Naruto's. Danzo took advantage of this opportunity to insert the needle. Ah! The rock Crypsis spy screamed in pain, and in an instant, his body was swallowed by the trees. Another material is missing. Danzo frowned, but the next moment, he hurriedly jumped to the ground. This evil and ominous chakra fluctuation. It's the Kyuubi? Seeing this scene, Danzo's eyes almost rippled with anger. Letting the Kyuubi break the seal is a major dereliction of duty. Hiruzen, you are too incompetent as the Hokage. At the same time, at the border of Woodleaf, Garashi climbed up from the pit in the distance. Looking at the scene in front of him, the corner of his eyes twitched. Did he accidentally go too far? I thought that as a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, she should be able to easily perceive my situation. Garashi sighed. But fortunately, if she came out with her tail, it would be really difficult to end the situation, but this situation is not too bad. Thinking of this, Garashi struggled to climb out of the pit. Oniai-san, please stop, I'm fine. Shina Kushina, who was in a berserk state, calmed down after hearing Garashi's voice, and the blood mist on her body began to dissipate. In the distance, Asma, who seemed to be scared silly, heard Garashi's voice and finally recovered. Garashi, it's great that you're okay. As for Yunin's ninja, he couldn't hear Garashi's voice, he was scared to death by the Kyuubi's chakra. This level is far from enough. Garashi frowned slightly. He naturally didn't care about Yunin's group, but he found that the blood mist on Shina Kushina's body dissipated to a certain extent and then stabilized. At this time, Asma also trotted all the way and whispered in Garashi's ear, Garashi, what happened to Oniai-san? Maybe it's the tailed beast mentioned in the book. Oniai-san, is she a Jinchuriki? So pitiful. Garashi shook his head slightly and shouted shamefully, Kind Oniai, you must hold on. You are so kind and brave, you must not lose to the devil in your heart. Like a real mouth cannon, every time Garashi shouted, the blood mist on Shina Kushina's body dissipated. Sure enough, it's too shameful. Garashi took a deep breath and looked to the side. Asma, come with me and cheer for Oniai-san. Asma, who was watching the show from the side, was stunned and pointed at himself blankly. It's very happy to see others shouting, but it's too shameful when it's him. But seeing Garashi's determined eyes, Asma had to agree. Then his face turned green and he said, Oniai, your form is really ugly. Quickly change back. As soon as his voice fell, the blood mist on Shina Kushina's body rose. Seeing this, Garashi helplessly patted Asma's shoulder. Forget it, you'd better not say it. If you continue, you'll get beaten up. Chapter 47. Just as Garashi's mouth was dry from shouting, someone jumped down from the tree in a handsome posture. Seeing Shina Kushina's strange expression, and Garashi's shameful words, Minato hurriedly asked. Shinakushina, what happened to you? Also, what happened to you? Nyesan was attacked by the monster sealed in her body. Garashi replied and then asked, Nyesan, are you Nyesan's friend? Friend? It should be possible, probably, maybe? Minato seemed a little shy. Although he had been secretly paying attention to Shinakushina, she was very resistant to everything in the outside world, so the two of them didn't actually talk much. That's great. Garashi cheered. Nyesan is now relying on her own perseverance to fight the monster. Nyesan, hurry up and say something to make Nyesan happy and confident. It's best if you can remind Nyesan of your bond. Is that so? Hearing Shinakushina's situation was so critical, Minato didn't care about anything else, and said the words buried in his heart for a long time. Because of your beautiful red hair, I noticed you when you first came to school. At that time, you were laughed at because of your red hair, and I was so angry that I wanted to stand up and help you. However, you didn't cry when you were bullied but bravely fought back. From that time on, I knew that you were very strong both in strength and spirit. I like Shinakushina from the bottom of my heart. Also, today is actually the day you came to school. I didn't have the courage to ask about your birthday, so I kept this day in my heart. I was going to invite you out on a date, but I accidentally found out that you were taken away, and I don't want to lose you. Garashi's mouth twitched slightly. What is this? Is this some kind of romantic talk? Sure enough, Namikaze Minato has his own unique insights when it comes to language. However, when Minato said these words, the ominous red mist that wrapped Shinakushina's body quickly dissipated. In just a few breaths, Shinakushina returned to her original form, and then her body softened and she fell into Minato's arms. Asuma was dumbfounded. This is the world of the strong? The next day, Naruto's building. Hiruzen, you should already know what happened yesterday, right? Of course, they're all good kids. Don't play dumb. Danzo sneered, breaking the QB seal. Do you think you can just forget it? Hehe, take a look at this. Sandaime didn't get angry. He took out his smoking gun and pushed a document over. Danzo coldly snorted and took the document, his eyes almost popped. It was written in the document that the crisis was caused by his indulgence of the Cloud-Hidden Army spies. Seeing this, he finally remembered that because of the material, he planned to catch a few more spies, so he didn't pay much attention to them. Moreover, he didn't think that a group of genin could carry out a secret mission. Who would have thought that the Yunin spies would hit the jackpot? Ahem. Danzo calmly pushed the document back. Let's put this aside and talk about the next issue. Mitokado Hamura and Koharu Udatane shook their heads secretly. Danzo really can't beat Hiruzen. Sandaime smiled lightly. Then let's talk about the rewards for Minato and Shimizu Garashi. Wait a minute. Danzo, who had just calmed down, immediately interrupted. I think it's necessary to bring Minato and Shimizu Garashi back to root for my personal training. Danzo, do you know what you're talking about? Sandaime's gentle face suddenly turned cold. You're too weak, Hiruzen. Danzo said tit for tat. One can make a Jinchuriki go berserk and the other can make a Jinchuriki calm down. This kind of bond can be the best tool for us to control the QB. Mito-sama said that if you don't want to be eroded by the QB's hatred, you must first fill your heart with love. Sandaime's eyelids drooped. Shinakushina has now filled the emptiness in her heart. I won't let you push her into the abyss. Stupid, a ninja is a tool, and as for a Jinchuriki, they're nothing more than vessels. Danzo said firmly. In short, Minato and Shimizu Garashi, I must. Boom. The door was violently pushed open and debris splashed everywhere. The umbu hidden in the surroundings instantly jumped out, but after seeing who it was, they consciously retreated. They confirmed that it was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Seeing the two coming towards him, Danzo's eyes were gloomy. Jiraiya, Tsunade, what do you two want? But before he could finish, Tsunade raised her fist and slammed it. Boom. The place where Danzo was standing was directly hit, and even the entire Naruto building trembled. The next moment, Danzo came back from the dark corner, and his face was not only gloomy but also furious. You two bastards, do you want to betray the village? Tsunade's face was cold and she said domineeringly, I came here today to say one thing. If you dare to touch my disciple, don't blame me for killing you. Jiraiya laughed. My disciple is the same. Danzo's face was gloomy. For Woodleaf, a little sacrifice is worth it. Boom. Another stand-in was directly hit by Tsunade. I'm not here to listen to your nonsense. Tsunade put her hand on the table. In short, I don't care if it was your Root who did it, but as long as my disciples are in danger in the village, I will blame it all on Root. Every time they are attacked, I will kill one person. This time, even the two consultants who were watching the show stood up. Tsunade, do you know what you were talking about? No matter what, Roots ninjas are your companions in Woodleaf. Jiraiya was secretly speechless. Tsunade is as irritable as ever. Companions? Tsunade sneered. Do you think those people really understand the meaning of companions? Enough. Danzo came out from the corner again. Do you really think I don't dare to label you as a traitor? As you wish. Tsunade waved her hand casually. If I didn't want to wait for Shizen to graduate, I would have taken her away from Woodleaf. Tsunade, don't be impulsive. Danzo, you also calm down. The two Hokage consultants quickly stood up to smooth things over. Not to mention Tsunade's symbolic identity, her strategic level of medical skills made them not dare to act recklessly. However, Tsunade didn't buy it. I'm not here to discuss with you today, I'm just here to tell you the truth. As for whether you want to believe it or not, it's not something I need to consider. After saying that, she walked out swiftly and decisively. Jiraiya on the side was stunned for a moment. He came here today, didn't he just say one sentence? Shaking his head, he left behind a sentence and followed after her. I advise you, don't provoke a crazy woman. An angry sage is the same. Chapter 48. The atmosphere in the conference room was very oppressive. After a long time, Danzo angrily complained. Sarutobi, look at your good disciple. Sandaime nodded slightly and smiled. Yes, my good disciple. Hearing Sarutobi's understatement, Danzo was so angry that his facial features were about to be dislocated. You. Sandaime no longer looked at him and turned to invite them. The sun is very warm today, let's go out and exercise. Mitokado and Koharu nodded and followed him out. Soon, only Danzo was left in the conference room. Hiruzen, you will regret this. At the same time, Jiraiya, who followed Tsunade, asked. Tsunade, you don't really want to leave Woodleaf, do you? Maybe after all? Tsunade sighed. This village was built by Grandpa, there's nothing to be nostalgic about. Jiraiya winked. How can there be no nostalgia? Don't you still have me and Sensei? Oh, you want to peek at others taking a bath? Tsunade looked at him contemptuously, then her expression became complicated. As for Sensei, why did we happen to appear here, don't you know? Jiraiya was silent for a moment, then laughed. Don't say that, Sensei is doing this for Minato and your disciple. Tsunade's expression was cold. So, you use us as a tool to balance the situation? Jiraiya opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Forget it, there are some things I don't want to get to the bottom of. Perhaps, not knowing anything is also a kind of happiness. Seeing the atmosphere suddenly heavy, Jiraiya changed the topic. By the way, you just said that you want to take Shizen away from Woodleaf. You said it deliberately for Danzo to hear, right? Tsunade's eyes were dignified. If I didn't say that, do you think he would stop? Don't forget, he's not the kind of person who cares about the lives of his subordinates. Jiraiya nodded and asked again. But after Shizen graduates, what about your disciple? According to the normal graduation process, there are only 3 or 4 years left. 3 or 4 years is enough. Jiraiya had a strange look on his face. Are you trying to tell me that a 10-year-old child has the strength to fight against Danzo? You don't understand. He's different from us. In him, I seem to see the same light as my grandfather. The kind of light that can make the people around him follow him and be willing to fight for his ideals. Tsunade said, no matter how crazy Danzo is, he can't fight against the entire village. Jiraiya rubbed his chin, his eyes full of surprise. How could a violent woman like Tsunade give such a high evaluation? Is it Shimizu Garashi? I'm starting to get curious. 432. Inside the ward, a count was accompanied by heavy breathing. Garashi, why did you get out of bed? You're a patient now, you should have a good rest. Asma saw Garashi doing push-ups as soon as he entered the room and hurriedly stepped forward to pull him up. Don't worry, I'm a medical ninja myself. No one knows my physical condition better than me. Garashi stood up with a smile. But what happened to your eyes? Garashi noticed that Asma's eyes seemed to be a bit too dark. Haha. Asma avoided his eyes and said, by the way, Garashi, I'll peel fruit for you. He was beaten by us. That's right, how dare you take Garashi to do such a dangerous thing? Behind Asma, Shizun and Kurenai walked in angrily. No wonder Asma came in so quickly. It turned out that he was afraid of being beaten? Garashi laughed and patted Asma's shoulder embarrassedly. Sorry I made you. However, Asma was extremely emotional and said with red eyes, "No, they did the right thing. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be injured." Garashi didn't know whether to laugh or cry inside. As the culprit, he wanted to apologize but couldn't. After reprimanding Asuma, silent sound and the other two quickly surrounded him and inquired about his well-being from both sides. "Garashi, do you feel any discomfort in your body now? Garashi, do you want to eat now? I made lunch for you." When Shizune and Kurenai's eyes met, there seemed to be sparks flashing, but when they looked away, both of them looked around tacitly. "Garashi, let me clean the room for you. Then I'll make the bed." After looking for a while, Asma thought with a strange expression. Although the big brother last night was also very powerful, compared to Garashi, he seems to be far behind. "Asma, why are you still here? Yeah, didn't you have to go to the toilet? When did I say I was going to?" Asma pointed at himself blankly at first, but after meeting four murderous eyes, he instantly woke up and covered his stomach with his small hand. "Ouch, my stomach suddenly feels uncomfortable." With that, he hurriedly rushed outside. "Ouch, who is it?" Asma just rushed to the door and bumped into a soft body. "You're really lively, little Asma, completely different from Yuan Fei Sensei's stability." Asma looked up and shouted excitedly, "Orochimaru-sama." Hearing his shout, several people in the room also excitedly greeted him. Different from the dark image of the future, the current Orochimaru is more feminine and handsome. Moreover, Orochimaru, as a genius of the first generation of civilians who was discovered by the Sandaime and made great contributions in the Second Shinobi World War, his popularity in Konoha is quite high. In many people's eyes, he is the future Sandaime Naruto. Orochimaru smiled softly. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" Garashi said shyly, "I was too excited, it's really rude." Orochimaru slowly walked in and secretly looked at the other side. Is it him who made Tsunade's dead heart come back to life? Garashi collected his thoughts, looked at Orochimaru expectantly and asked, "Orochimaru-sama, are you here today because of what happened last night?" Hearing Garashi's question, Asma also looked forward to it. "Orochimaru-sama, is the village going to reward us?" As the top second generation, he doesn't care about rewards, but he quite enjoys the honor and recognition. Orochimaru's eyes were gentle. "Of course, you foiled Yunin's plot and protected the companions in the village. Especially you, Garashi-kun, if you didn't restrain that little girl's impulse, I can't imagine what would have happened now." The most important thing is that Minato is also starting from scratch. So, he can totally rub off on his experience and insights. Thinking of this, Garashi no longer hesitated. "Orochimaru-sama, then I will also choose the Flying Thunder God technique." Orochimaru's vertical pupils flashed with a hint of surprise. "Are you sure?" "Garashi-sama, the Flying Thunder God technique is one of the most difficult ninjutsu to practice. I just think that it would be easier for two people to talk to each other rather than one person practicing alone." Shushi naturally referred to their freeloading as mutual improvement. Orochimaru didn't know about this and thought that Garashi wanted to help Minato. He couldn't help but sigh. "No wonder Tsunade cheered up because of you, so gentle." A few days later on the hospital field, Garashi controlled his own pace and slowly ran. At this time he heard a whoosh sound. A green whirlwind whizzed past Shushi like a phantom. Thick eyebrows stop. "I'm asking you to do rehabilitation exercises, not suicide exercises." Two figures followed behind the green phantom, panting as they shouted. However, the whirlwind running figure showed no signs of stopping. No, my lungs are going to fall out." "Damn, is that kid really a patient?" Yumiko ne Misaki. Hearing this familiar voice, the two young nurses who were chasing the green whirlwind finally stopped. "Garashi, you came just in time, hurry up, help us stop him. That kid was originally in the hospital because of muscle strain, does he not want his legs anymore?" Hearing the complaints of the two, Garashi chuckled. "Yumiko, Nason, leave this to me, I happen to know the student over there, he's a freshman this year." "Can you really do that?" Yumiko looked at each other and decided to believe in Shushi's ability. "Shushi will leave it to you. We have to go back and check the rooms now." After that, the two limped away, supporting each other. "Mekhe-san, do you want to compete?" Standing on the edge of the field, Garashi smiled and threw the bait. "Competition." The green whirlwind's eyes lit up as it stopped in front of Shushi. It then asked excitedly, "Senior Shushi, you know me?" As he spoke, he continued to run on the same spot without stopping to rest. Of course, you forced me, the president of the Psychology Society, to join your Vitality Society. Garashi smiled helplessly. How could I forget? It's the youthful hot-blooded Vitality Society. Metke first solemnly corrected and then asked suspiciously, Garashi-san, why are you in the hospital? Were you also beaten up? Also? Garashi's eyes twitched slightly and he coughed. This is the injury from the battle with the Yunin spy a few nights ago. Although he couldn't disclose the matter of Shinakushina, he could still talk about the spy incident. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to explain the injury on his body. He couldn't really blame everything on Danzo. Sure enough, you were beaten up. But, Metke subconsciously said enviously, catching the spy? That's really amazing. Garashi's mouth twitched slightly. Why does this sound a bit wrong? Then you, I'm different. The students I tricked into joining the club said they wanted to beat me, but they couldn't catch up with me. Metke proudly puffed out his chest. I ran 20 streets in one breath, and no one could hit me until I pulled my muscles. So, senpai, your body is not good. Do you want to join the club and train with me? As a medical ninja, he can naturally see that Metkai's classmates didn't really hit him. They were just jokingly grabbing his face and rubbing it. After about 20 minutes, Metke stood in front of Garashi again with a swollen face. He said in a muffled voice, Garashi, senpai, I'm ready. Looking at the pig-headed man in front of him, Garashi was amused. At the same time he formed a seal with both hands and pressed it. Metke, who was baptized by the healing spell, let out a misunderstood moan of harmony. The next moment he shouted energetically, Garashi, senpai, I'm ready. Let's start the race. Garashi smiled and said, let's set the competition as running. Metke was energized and hurriedly asked, Garashi, senpai, then shall we compete to see who can finish 20 laps around Wood Leaf first? Garashi's mouth twitched and he coughed. We're all patients now, so we shouldn't exercise too much. Let's compete to see who can finish 1 lap around the field first. Just 1 lap. Metke scratched his head and was a little disappointed. However, he quickly pulled himself together and shouted, Garashi senpai, I definitely won't lose to you. Then let's start. 3, 2, 1, run. As soon as he finished speaking, Metke ran forward as if his life depended on it. Even his facial features were slightly distorted by the wind. This speed is really scary. Garashi sighed in his heart. His gaze sharpened. Looks like I have to be more serious. Although he didn't want to win from the beginning, it wouldn't be good to lose too badly. On the field, 2 gusts of wind raged past. The patients who were strolling slowly were so scared that they trembled all over. The 2 of them ran side by side. One moment it was Garashi in front, and the next moment, it was Metke in the first place. The position in front was almost constantly changing. Should I exhaust myself now? Garashi was hesitating when he suddenly realized that Metke, who was beside him, was emitting an aura that was completely different from before. Dad said that as long as I work hard, even geniuses can be defeated by ordinary people. It's impossible for hard work not to be rewarded. Metkai's eyes flashed with his father's and his daily training, as well as the disdainful ridicule of his father by others. Suddenly, an incomparably huge amount of energy erupted from within his body. With only a quarter of the race left, he completely overtook Garashi. Then, under Garashi's shocked gaze, he rushed past the finish line in a spurt of energy. I won. Metke was so tired that he directly knelt on the ground. His lungs were burning and he was almost unable to speak. Yes, you won. Garashi smiled and sat aside without caring about his demeanor. I really didn't expect that my first defeat since entering the school would be to lose to you. So, as punishment for losing the race, let me give you a physical examination every week from now on.